Hello, and this is Spotlight, recorded live here on Grapple Patreon. I'm Benno.
And I'm JP.
And another GRAPPLMania is in the books, possibly the last GRAPPLMania, depending on what happens next year, JP. But yeah, we are here on a Tuesday, just me and you, mate, to wrap up the weekend, to talk, obviously, the big shows, a couple of the little shows, and a couple of the in-between, some highlights, some lowlights. Feels like prime Spotlight material, this. And it's good because Matty's away, so we can't defend some of the shit we've got to talk about in night one. Or maybe back me up with some of the positive stuff I've got to say about night two. It's one of them. We get a bit of both in this Spotlight. We're split in the background. You know, we've got the two nights there. I get to go in two-footed on a few things with maybe a couple of exceptions, and maybe even get to be a bit positive at the end. It's what you want on a podcast. That's they're the best ingredients.
It's a proper smorgasbord of stuff, because I found what the problem was is that Arsenal-Man City game in the middle of both of these WrestleManias did have somewhat of an effect. By Sunday, I was
I was talking about that. I was talking about City Arsenal and the derby, mate. I don't know which was the good and which was the bad, though. I'll say the bad was the derby, but you probably go the other way around.
I would say the bad was our one on there, but you know, we both suffered. I like to think we both went in off WrestleMania Sunday like, you lot better fucking impress me, or I'm going in there with both feet in there. So, but yeah, just a mad smorgasbord of stuff. How are you holding up, more to the point? Because you've been a proper Iron Man over this period.
My mum said she was proud of me. I put a little post on Instagram of all the different, the daily podcasts, with obviously doing the weekend show with you, doing the live with Matty, doing the Spotlight, and the other live with Gareth, and doing the show with Andy as well. So I was happy with that my mum appeared to think that I was doing hard graft. But I don't know, the hardest graft in here, as people will have heard on the Patreon, was the days where my aircon wasn't working. But it is all sorted now, JP. So we are in a better place. But yeah, I've got to say, there was a couple of nights, especially Saturday and Sunday, where I was literally going to bed at like 10 a.m. because WrestleMania was finishing at 9 a.m. Vietnamese time. Like, it comes to something, JP, when your pay-per-view snack of choice or your pay-per-view meal of choice is a McDonald's breakfast, which strangely comes with chicken nuggets over here, but did the job, worked out well. But my body, my body clock is mental at the best of times, but it's going to take me a few weeks to recover from this. I might need as you've said before, a holiday from my holiday. Maybe I'll find a little escape once this GRAPPLMania is fully done with.
Well, exactly. You get a lot of time off, don't you? Oh, no, you don't. You do Wrestling Dontaku the weekend coming up. So not that much time off.
Clusterfuck was enough, mate. Fucking hell.
Hopefully I sound a bit louder now than what I did before. I have tried turning it up on here.
Thought you would have been quiet. Yeah, let us know in the chat. Yeah.
Let us know in the chat if that is the case. Terrible audio for those listening back on here. Yeah, but chicken nuggets for breakfast it's too wild for my tastes. Like,
I want to point out as well, this was like chicken nuggets as the main, so like no, Andy in the chat there, hash browns on the side still. So it was kind of a good blending of two worlds, and it kept me going, mate. It got me through a fucking long weekend. Which, to be fair, this has been the weirdest GRAPPLMania week, because it's like I listened to Voices of Wrestling, and like obviously over on their Patreon, they've been covering the shows, and they've literally said now they are never covering GCW ever again, which I really respect, to be honest, coming out of this weekend, because I think that's probably a good lesson for most of us coming out of it. I won't learn it, but it's good that wiser men have. But it felt like the weekend was over pretty much on like Saturday morning. Obviously, we've got WrestleMania to talk about today, and that's very fucking big to talk about. But as far as like the indies go, like Effie's Big Gay Brunch, and what else was the clusterfuck itself on Saturday night, and then that was it really. So yeah, it feels a little bit. I don't know. Ever since we went to these 2-day manias, JP, it's not been quite the same.
It isn't it? He's kind of destroyed the weekend, which is good. It's kind of like my bigger point. This felt like a swan song for this type of WrestleMania and the way it's laid out with the weekend, just because of the 2 days and how mad it is for the Sunday show. But it just feels like the concept generally about how it's structured with spring break, no more blood sport. I'm not that sad about it. I think this time around I was like, yeah, when Super Beast mate went, that's when I jumped off the wagon there. But it just feels, the whole structure with it, particularly because the 2-day Mania, it's not going anywhere, is it? It's staying. If anything, it became 3 days. I
was going to Saudi, but outside of that, not going anywhere. Yeah.
Well, and that's it. And that 1 year break where it's could be in a war-torn Saudi, which at least would make for a novel perspective, wouldn't it? But at the same time, like, that 1 year break away feels like that's a chance to kind of reset for a lot of the indies and about how they approach it as well, and the amount of stuff that's fitted in. About like, is it worth piggybacking off this to a certain extent? I don't know. It doesn't feel like the juice is worth the squeeze at times.
Yeah, I'll still be sad if it's gone though. Like as much as like we'll talk at the, at the very end, we're going to go through maybe some highlights and lowlights. We already asked the chat for their best matches, best obviously shows across the weekend, and maybe we could even talk who was the performer of the weekend. As a hint, it was an elderly Mexican man, but we will get there when we get there. But when it's shit, I still had a good time, JP. It still kind of got me through the week. Having like that Thursday night this year wasn't necessarily up to much. It didn't feel like from a show point of view. If anything, some of the better, we talked about it with Garrett, smaller scale shows, and talked about it with Andy, probably were there on the Thursday. And then obviously the catch up with the Lucha lads, which is the biggest takeaway. The CMLL show was definitely going to be up there when we talk show of the week. But the Friday was pretty much the meme night, and Bloodsport, you kind of count in that as well these days. And Spring Breakers, obviously, I think it felt like from our review, very much ran its course at this point. Like I say, by the time I got to the clusterfuck, I couldn't be bothered. Even StrangleMania, JP, I don't want to spoil too much for later, but I feel like I know you were very excited for that, but I was very excited for it. I was building it up as like I was buying into the irony, and then I ended up sat here at 2 PM with 2 Vietnamese electricians working on something in the room while I was just sat there kind of half embarrassed on my chair at what was taking place on the screen in front of me. And it wasn't even so bad it was good, that one, JP. It was just so bad it was bad. I don't know what your thoughts were when you finally watched it. It wasn't one to watch at 2 PM, I will absolutely say that.
Trying to watch it around small children was like a novel experience. Like
there were a few in the crowd, to be fair. And not just Matty.
They really were, wasn't there? And my God, they made you wait. And I can't hear that music, though. The dreadful music in between matches. It's a fucking dirge. And it was like a lot of the show was dirge. I'm still not sure what that opening match was. If you ask, it's like, at best, stuff is like 2 stars. And I've watched some of JCW Lunacy, and I can see the perverse pleasure in it once you recognise that wrestling is not the be-all and end-all here. The actual stuff in the ring, they couldn't give 2 shits about. But here, my God, that was just like it might have been the one show though that I kind of made sure to watch that entire way through. And I was like, this is shit. But like you say before, you can take, like, I mean, I heard you when you were talking to Gareth about this, just trying to explain it to him, and he's just like, right, I don't need to catch up on any of this stuff. It's like, no.
Bloodsport was enough for him. Josh Barnett taking that out back and putting a bullet in its head was happy news to Gareth.
It is, isn't it? By the way, you were talking about this with Gareth. The best role for Josh Barnett, commentator. As a commentator on wrestling, he's all right. Do you remember him and Ross used to do it, obviously, for New Japan on Access?
Like, I mean, yeah, but I also remember when he jumped the guardrail and started on Jay White, which was not in storyline whatsoever, because White is Josh Barnett. It's like, that's the problem in it, though. It's the ego side. Like, I love that, like, obviously, again, we covered it on the Patreon show, and I'll be doing the plugs in a minute, patreon.com/grapple to get our daily thoughts as they happen. But, like, it was like, Josh Barnett, like, I think Bloodsport's ran its course, I don't think you're saying, like, he wants to get to a higher level, but he doesn't think it's going to happen, so let's kill it now before it gets worse, which I don't know after these few years. And then GCW have come out and gone, bye Josh, anyway, you'll probably see Bloodsport again. It's like, that'll be back once we get through the Saudi Mania, depending on whether Tony Khan does a big weekend stadium show or something like that in the States next year that might take its place. JP will be back. It'll be GRAPPLMania 10. I'm skipping the 9 because we also didn't count the Indie Corner year, and it'll be back there. Bloodsport, it'll be StrangleMania 2, it'll be all of the usual shite in terrible, dingy halls with bad lighting and bad streams, and you know what? We'll be loving every second of it because that's just how it goes.
We will, and your full-throated defence of it there makes me want StrangleMania in Saudi Arabia. Which, to say, if nothing else, that would be an experience.
I think that happens a lot, but anyway.
Yeah, GCW does Saudi. All right, I'm in. Go on, Effie. Let's see how this works. Like, this is just like fucking, or it would be like, that would be like that would be as far as wrestling can really go at that stage. Yeah.
There's a lot of Bloodsport jokes you can make too, isn't it? But I don't know, JP has to fly over that airspace, so I'm being careful.
Monday, as Mohammed Bilton Salman calls it.
JP said it, not me. JP Hula.
That's right. Yeah.
Anywho, I mean, on that note, like I say, we'll get into the plugs. Like I say, we covered the full GRAPPLMania gambit, and like I say, at the end of the show, we'll talk a couple of our big highlights and big lowlights. Not a lot of recommendations, folks, but again, there's a couple in there we can sneak in. But if you did miss it, obviously over on on the Patreon. We did daily shows, including Gigantic Weekend Show, which did preview everything of the weekend, which might have aged a little bit, but we obviously talked Dynamite on that show as well. Talked Darby Allin and his big AEW title win. So yeah, go sign up to the Patreon. You might even be able to get a bit of that on the free tier of the Patreon, or take a free trial. It's always an option open to you there as well. But like I say, did daily lives, did shows with Gareth and with Andy Ogden as well. Like I say, we did the live with Matty last week that was free for all too. And speaking of Matty, I think I'm burying the lead here, JP. The thing that people have been most excited for this year, and I count myself in that, is Matty's Matty Mania audio shows, where on the ground he got in, mate, after SmackDown and left before Raw, and somehow that man crammed in everything he crammed in the 3 days of audio people will have heard, and the different wrestlers he bumped into and other podcasters he might have bumped into multiple times. Yes, the Matty and Brian Alvarez story does continue, but genuinely, whenever he was sending me his voice notes, and whenever I got to my phone, I was literally hitting play right away. Like Joe wanted them right away, I was forwarding them to him, I was forwarding them to Steph, I was getting them posted on the feed as quickly as possible, because it was like crack. Like, it's just, there's something about it, as much as like we're probably going to disagree with a lot of the things he said on those shows, and I think a good chunk of our listenership will as well. Just the pure enthusiasm and like the time that lad had once again out there, it was just like, oh, that's what I wanted. I want to see Matty with a big smile on his face, and I saw it when he got a picture with Trish Stratus. But anyway, he had a fucking great time.
Tremendous! Oh, he did incredible photos as well. I mean, the Trish Stratus one just coming out of the blue and stuff like Rhino in a casino. Why
which,
not?
Coincidentally, his wife is cropped out of the picture with Trish, and he did say it was Steph's idea. So we'll I believe him. I think others wouldn't, but anyway.
Yeah, he just said it was so weird. He just turned the corner, and there she was. She was there, and was Jazz there as well? There was like there was just like a couple of like
not Ray Jazz, different Jazz,
not Ray Jazz. No, Ray Jazz is Bloodsport. Whoever the fuck Ray Jazz is, go on, just let him run the show. Let's see what happens. Let's see what Ray can provide.
Try listening to the commentary, folks, and try listen to Tom Lawler saying his name over and over again. Tell me you don't hear him say Rage Ass, but anyway, lad needs a new name. But no, I think he saw the actual Jazz there amongst Al Snow, Zack Sabre Jr. on the strip in his flip flops. Bumped into a load of luminaries. Got clawed by a Von Erich. What a time he had! Honestly, amazing audio, proper just feel good audio. I know people loved it last year, but I personally absolutely loved it this year. The lad's got a talent for podcasting, JP. Who knew? And he's great at doing the solo stuff.
Oh, he's tremendous, and he honestly, having done solo podcasts before, no easy feat, and he makes it look brilliant as well. And he's able to get his scran in as well that he's been eating all along the way, and he's having a bit of a break himself, thank goodness, as he travels on a bit of the West Coast there. So like he's had a brilliant time, and I think that's one of the main things is I'm glad that we are going to praise bits of this, because I'm just glad for him. Like I would have felt bad if it had just been like, this is the worst thing of all time. Although we're not going to see as many highs as Matty did over the weekend, bless him. But yeah, if you haven't listened to it, brilliant stuff. All three parts, glorious.
Definitely check that out. And obviously, the month isn't over. We'll have Carl's King of the Mountain show. Probably be a quieter week this week. I think everyone will appreciate that. Stay tuned. I'll let you know what's coming out. But definitely Bretro will be out. Definitely Stone Cold Crazy will be out to fill the gap as well. And you know me, JP, I can't help myself. There'll be something on people's feeds before next week. But we'll see how it goes. But yeah, check all that out if you haven't. Like I say, become a YouTube member as well and get it all as well. So yeah, great. Still a great time to jump on. But on that note, JP, we should get into what we're here to talk about. And, you say that we're not going to go into two-footed. And you say Matty's going to get some good audio out of this. But I'm quite excited to go in two-footed on this absolute abomination, which was WrestleMania Saturday. And again, we're going to get to Sunday in a little while. And like I said, I was even doing some standing and pacing of myself in here, getting very excited during one of the big matches, maybe a couple of the big matches on Sunday's card. But we've got to start with Saturday. And fuck me. I didn't know they did Road to WrestleMania shows, JP. I know we, like I say, we credit New Japan with a lot of ideas, but feels like that's what that was. Like, can we remember? Like, there's been Saturdays where it has felt like, all right, now it's Sunday, now it's proper WrestleMania, but like, I was expecting to come on here and expected Sunday to possibly be along those lines, but it just felt like watching a TV show. It felt like, especially the ending, especially, we're obviously going to mention the thing everyone's going to mention, which is the fucking adverts. I was watching an ESPN version of the feed, JP. Unfortunately, weirdly, Vietnam Netflix didn't have WrestleMania on it live. Mustn't be many big fans here, and it was kicking me out because of my VPN, so I had to, like I say, go the ESPN route. So I actually wasn't seeing Terry's documentary advertised at me 400,000 times. I just read people talking about it 400,000 times. If anything, JP, I kept getting the Snickers advert, like, they do the Snickers adverts, and to that point, to be honest, the last 3 days, every time I've gone past the shop, I have genuinely bought a Snickers, and they're about £1 out here, which is about 2 meals. So, like, it's killing me, to be honest, killing my bank account. But I don't know, maybe those work subliminally. I don't know if the Terry ads worked subliminally with you, because good lord, like, I haven't heard the takes of at least the European out there, and obviously a few of the Americans as well, who were watching it through those means, who didn't have a fucking horrendous time trying to get through this night one of WrestleMania.
Well, I mean, if a 4-hour show contains an hour and a half of wrestling and 2.5 hours of advertising, it becomes like unwatchable. Like, it really is. I was quite relieved to fall asleep while watching it, knowing I was going to say,
did you watch it? Oh, I didn't watch it all live, right?
Not all live, no. So I watched, like, oh God, what about the first 3 matches? And then I knew I was going to fall asleep. So I just like watching it in my phone and in bed. And I was just like, Jesus Christ. The adverts will send me off. It won't be like lackluster action in the ring. It will just be adverts. And it does feel like it's hit like the zenith of like the backlash to this, because it's so ridiculous. And it makes me, I was honestly during this going, why have I ever criticised an AEW pay-per-view for just having so many matches and having like such little time? It was like, Jesus Christ, it was extreme. It really was. It kind of felt like UFC, but there's a different vibe around it. Like, this is meant to be about spectacle, and instead what you've got is these really long lulls, and then it affects the crowd, because then they like, they're having to wait around themselves for like sort of 20 minutes of time for a match and stuff, to see 8 minutes in there. So stuff being completely underserved with it. It was ridiculous. God bless those who managed to stay up and watch the whole thing live, because I couldn't help but want to fall asleep, especially at that time.
Yeah, and obviously as well with the ESPN split, the actual proper WrestleMania side of it didn't feel like there were even that many, especially on the Sunday, there were that many matches. Luckily, a couple of them were good, so it kind of got you through it. But like, fuck me, like the spacing out of it, like even me, and I think I'm in the very, very small minority of people. I've been on record of it before, of not necessarily always hating the break between adverts. Now, don't get me wrong, a Saturday night's main event, like where they're doing the adverts in the actual matches themselves and chopping into it and kind of cutting the way the momentum of the show, like that's always been something I've complained about. But when it's come to pay-per-views, I've usually been all right with it, especially in the arenas. Like when I've been to WWE shows or even AEW shows, it's like, yeah, you want to stretch your legs, you want to go get a snack, you might want to go to the toilet. And I think sometimes the same applies at home. And again, I know that's quite a minority opinion on it, so I haven't hated it. But this was this times 10, wasn't it? Like, there was just, even me, it was like, I was running out of things to do. I was like, I'll get a snack, I guess I'll go to the toilet, I guess I'll take up smoking, I'll go outside. Hopefully my mum isn't listening this far. Like, honestly, it was just unbelievable. And combine that with, like, I'll just say it now, and I'm not going to say it about Sunday, I promise, but all-time bad WrestleMania was Saturday. Like, it was just a recipe for just disaster. It was a miserable experience, and I know... Yeah. Obviously, TKO are going to try and bleed every penny out of everything. We're going to be speaking about that later when that weird crypto bloke turns up on commentary. But, putting fucking advertisements on, like, the ring and stuff like that is one thing. But, like, everything's for sale, isn't it? I've seen a few people say it, and that's just what TKO WWE is right now. And it's just, oh, yeah, we're not making as much money as we were last year. Well, fuck it. Double the adverts. Fuck it. Like, even, like, as far as, like, what you get from a presentation point of view, you can't say it doesn't affect the wrestling in the way that maybe it didn't so much when they were even doing this in the early days. Like, gone are the days where you don't even get... Obviously, I don't want to see, like, Ron Simmons turn up backstage and do damn and a load of old-timers dance. But you don't even get backstage promos or anything, do you? There's literally nothing. No. It's more of a matches promotion, weirdly, than AEW, because it's just match, with 20 minutes in between, with a big gap between that weird match, because they're literally sacrificing any of that character development, even, like, proper video packages for the matches, all sacrificed so they can sandwich in even more ads. It's insane, isn't it? Like, it can't. I don't think it can go on. I think it's past the line of affecting people's enjoyment. And I know people expect to say that about American sports, and it's trending in the same direction as that, but it's also different, isn't it? I think wrestling operates in a different space than the NFL, where you're invested in the game or whatever like that. This is more like doing it during the Game of Thrones finale or something.
It is. Do you know what kind of the difference between this and say other sporting? Let's say the NFL. Quite often, you cut to a panel or something like that, which they have. They have other people sat at a desk who could talk about some of the matches in between, if that was the case, which at least would be something for a TV viewing audience, if not great for a live audience. But it didn't even do that. It was just like a relentless stream of adverts. Whereas others, and this is the difference, is that other people sort of recognise, well, there's different forms. If you're going to have a break between, say, fights at boxing, there are other things you could do. Like you could have the big sort of overblown video packages and stuff, but it all and I'm less bothered about stuff on the ring, particularly because of watching, say,
doesn't bother me at all.
Like New Japan or AAA or CMLL, where there is those kind of advertising on there. In some ways, I know it sounds weird to say, I don't mind that. I find it kind of like relatively harmless. But in this case, you're sort of making it difficult for a live audience who've had to pay through the fucking nose, who feel like they're at the point of like, oh, come on, you've already fleeced me for God knows how much to pay for a ticket to watch this shite. You're now making me sit through like a load of adverts. And as particularly American fans who are having to pay for ESPN in order to do this, whereas obviously I'm just playing, $8.99 a month for Netflix. So it's like, it's kind of no skin off my back. I'm kind of used to adverts, watching any show on there.
And I'm told there's less ads if you do pay more. Like there was a little bit more arena stuff if you do, but still a lot.
But it is, exactly, it's still a lot. So they're already charging them. And when it's become part of your storylines that this is the case, which is, I know you and Gareth said this, that's why the Andreas Hale thing is so ridiculous. The idea that like someone who is like being even somewhat mild, I think, in their criticism of what they could go after in there is not given press credentials, while their storyline is literally what are the most serious criticisms around sort of TKO and how they run WWE. It's just, it's a fucking mental perspective.
Yeah, and like you're saying, like the chat are saying there as well, when it comes to not only just cutting those video packages, but having to cut, entrances for like poor like fucking, some of the wrestlers who've like put together like these outfits. Poor Dragon Lee with his wings, his dragon wings that he wanted to show off. Speaking of Game of Thrones, and it's obviously Miro. It was funny watching it. Rusev not get his entrance, but again, like it's clearly taken away from that even that stuff as well on the show as well. Yeah, to be fair, I will actually we'll take that. But you're right. Imagine you were an American. Imagine you did pay. I know it's not full whack pay-per-view prices anymore, but like you're paying a fucking whack for those things, and you've got to sit through all the adverts. It was an appalling viewing experience, and like I say, I'd always rather watch these shows live, but this made me question myself as well when it came to it as well. But like I say, that was the big negative of night one. But then almost as big negative was the content of night one, and obviously those problems will continue into night two in some ways, but I think we've got to start, JP, if we're talking the Saturday, and we'll talk the undercard in a second, which again was a bit of a nightmare as far from a booking point of view and from an execution point of view, and like I say, didn't feel much like a WrestleMania. But I think we're going to talk about the general negative feeling towards WrestleMania Saturday. Most of it's coming out of that main event, and Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton. Like, I don't know what this was, JP. Like, it was absolutely appalling. Like, it was just so bad, and there were elements of the work that maybe a Gareth, we'll have him on a show at some point as well, where I don't think he was as low as some on some of the work in there. I'm guessing reading between the lines on some of his comments, but like for me, like it was just bizarre. It was just everything from it, like even from the start. Obviously we talked at length about the horrendous build and the Pat McAfee involvement, and obviously him getting his big entrance there at the start, and then you're getting the Cody Rhodes superhero thing with like the flashbacks to all of his old characters and his old wrestling gear out there on the stage as well. Like started quite well in the fact that he immediately takes out Pat McAfee, and I thought, okay, that's good. They've just decided that doesn't exist anymore. We're doing Cody and Randy, which felt like it was a good start, only for us to go literally from that into the most boring, plodding like 15 minutes where like Michael Cole's hitting you over the head with the fact that Randy Orton is injured, like making that part of the story. Therefore, like whoever thought this through, I don't know, they decided to go this direction. Randy is fighting from underneath. Randy is doing all the selling. Cody is working on top, which completely just mind-blowing that anyone thought that was a good idea. Kills the crowd dead. Crowd only comes to life once, you know, I think the two wrestlers are smart enough to realize this isn't working. We're killing the crowd here in the WrestleMania main event. And maybe being charitable for them, maybe they thought there'd be even more boos for Cody and even more cheers for Randy. And they thought that style of match would work. So they go to the finisher kickouts, they go to the big moves, and they get the people for a little while, only for fucking Pat McAfee to wander out again. I'm like, the finish to this thing, JP, we've got to get into. Like, I don't even know why Pat McAfee had the referee's shirt or how that made any sense to anybody but Pat McAfee. I believe it if they said he just came up with that idea on the fly for himself backstage, only to come out and obviously, you know, Randy Orton turns on him there at that point in the match. And then you get Cody, the babyface, taking advantage of that, which ultimately leads to his big win. And just when you think things can't get any more bizarre, and you think, all right, well, that's a pretty drab ending to WrestleMania Night 1, you know, at least the babyface won at the end, and he's going to hold up his belt and get the end of Saturday night. Nope. He gets jumped by Randy Orton, gets punted by Randy Orton, gets one hell of a black eye. And WrestleMania Night 1 goes off the air, JP, with Randy Orton celebrating with the belt like he won, which he didn't, like he's the champion, which he isn't. Like I say, like a go-home SmackDown, like a go-home Raw, like it's an angle to lead to some other match at some point, which, by the way, probably isn't going to be like the mixed tag, for lack of a better term, with Jelly Roll, who obviously was involved in this, and Pat McAfee. It does feel like that thing's dead, but what a fucking mishmash of terrible ideas, terrible execution, and just, this was an all-time bad WrestleMania main event, and I don't think you're about to change my mind on it.
No, I'm not going to change your mind at all. I mean, I think the idea, it's the idea. First of all, it's Randy Orton. Like, we know people who know their wrestling, who will defend him to the absolute hilt. And I rarely think of a wrestler who has bored me more. Well, there is one. He's the fucking booker of the company. So in some way, he's somewhat responsible for all of this stuff. And like, who in main events has repeatedly, it's been boring. That word methodical, it's just code. It's just code for boring, and I never want to hear it. But that just the whole dynamics of it, the taking out of McAfee, even though it's Jam Donut who did it, I'm like, all right, whatever. Okay, he's gone. That should be at the end. These two have a match who have their own obvious story that they could play. Yeah. It's not an exciting story. It's not a story that I would have used to headline at WrestleMania, but okay. And that completely goes to the wayside as the babyface beats down on the heel for it, like which again, like, and I think it was almost like the crowd, they were just fucking bored into submission. To then, like you say, have the ending, and McAfee just terrible in the role, just like completely like overacting as well, which just can even make it worse. Just like the grin on his face. I hate the idea of this, like this heel. He can't just count 3 and just tell the fucking timekeeper to blow it. It's like, no, it is only 2. I've got to abide by that. I just hate that aspect of like wrestling cliches. But it was so boring. I was so bored. I found my eyes just glazing over when I watched this the next morning. I was just like, fuck me. And it's like, and I thought at that point, I thought, no, just remember, you watch this and then you can start preparing for Arsenal Man City, which worked out equally as well as WrestleMania Saturday. So I was just like that. And just the dynamics around Cody as well. It's like this character, I just don't think can continue. And what's annoying is it's just like, if he really wants to be loved, the tried and tested way that you do this is you turn heel. You're so good at being a heel that the crowd turn you face. And he's good enough to be a really good heel that he could do this and get away with it and then be turned face. But it's just like the refusal to. And so I almost felt about him like I'd felt about him in AEW, where this kind of like apathy sets in, which is really, really bad for it. But yeah, this is an all-time stinker. I would say the only saving grace, not as bad as the Travis Scott stuff. That was worse, I feel. But like just bad. And like you say, just setting up a go home, you don't even have the happy fucking moment at the end of it. So,
and you got to call a spade as well. Like Matty will be screaming at us. But I was going to say his radio will be his podcast phone, won't it? Like, this is another year, Cody Rhodes. John Cena last year was terrible. This was terrible. His last great WrestleMania match was with Roman Reigns. So I'm sure you'll get some points for Matty there as well. But I think the bigger problem is, as you said there, it's workers Randy Orton. Like, you do not put Randy Orton at this grand old age, at this point in his career. Like, they can't control if Randy Orton is, really hurt, that made them have to work a match like this. They didn't have to lay it out like this, but, the more methodical style, like you say, or a way that protected Randy. Like, shit happens, but again, shit's more likely to happen when it's Randy Orton at, this grand old age of his career. And he's never been able to go. He's never been able to go as far as like top level, WrestleMania main event matches. Give me, again, I'm sure there's someone out there that can give me the list of top level, like big time Randy Orton matches. There's loads of ones that, like you say, people whose taste I do respect will point out as workers matches, and couple of WrestleMania undercard matches even that you can point out, but like, he's not somebody should be in the big spot, especially at this point in his career. And it was the worst of both worlds, because again, I don't think Cody escapes blame either. Cody is somebody who's like, he's not, he's not going to give you the most polished in-ring match at all times. He can sell you on emotion, and he's a hell of a babyface in the right role, and with the right partner, you can have great matches. You absolutely can, especially great stadium WrestleMania style matches. I do believe that's something that leans into Cody's strengths, but it doesn't lead into his strengths of working with somebody like Randy Orton. Like, chemistry wise, I think there was always an upper ceiling on it, even from that point of view. Just whether you want to get into, like I say, the bigger story elements and the investment elements and just the mess that this entire story was. It was just a failure by all metrics for me as a main event of WrestleMania, and just unbelievable that it took place, mate, but also quite believable considering where we are right now with TKO and WWE.
Exactly. And this is it's just the dynamics of this are so weird. But it also gets weirder when you watch Raw, where this isn't really a thing Randy Orton's not on it. I know it's a SmackDown thing.
They'll be SmackDown, they'll do something. Unless he takes time off with the injury.
But Cody Rhodes comes out, and it's just like, oh, okay. We're like, it is almost like, don't worry about it. We're kind of moving past that sort of like very
people who pay for the bus will be fuming. People who paid the $10,000 for that bus tour that got cancelled on Sunday afternoon or whenever it was supposed to be. He's fine. He's got a black eye, but he's all right. He's walking around.
Yeah.
He's chatting up with CM Punk,
If anything, they'd be more interested in seeing the black eye. They're willing to pay $10,000 to sit in his bus. I'm sure they can handle a black eye as part of the package of it. But I suppose I was always like, as soon as this was going to be there, it was just like, all right, well, there's just the obvious story. But I mean, as Andy says there in the chat, it's so overthought to the point of just ridiculousness. And it's even a match like that where you just think, if Randy's injured, you could shave off a few minutes. You could add minutes on elsewhere on the card. If other matches had felt more substantial before that, then it might have been a case they could have got away with a shorter main event. I know I would have fucking appreciated it. But and the thing is as well, of the two main events, this one is like a good 10 minutes shorter than the other one. And by God, I had a different feeling when I was like kind of
I was shocked when I looked at the runtime to rewatch them today. Jesus.
Astonished when I saw it. I was like, what? No. Because if you told me this one was twice as long, I would have believed you on it. But yeah, where do they go with this? Like, what do you do with, because it has to be like, I mean, you would say to them the best thing they could do here is just sort of kill Jester. And it's just like, just forget it ever happened. Move on, whatever the story. Just have a rematch between Cody and Randy Orton at Backlash, if that is your intention at some point. But then just sort of like move past it and move away. But I don't know. I don't think this is. I think this is going to be something to stay. And TKO have really become the heels in all of this, particularly when you got fuck TKO chants going on after in the post show on Sunday as well. Like, you could, like, I don't know, have a pro TKO stable I saw being kind of floated around the place against
Could
WWE.
be the leader as a heel, Could be something, Turns out he really does love Ari Emanuel, could be a thing.
Yeah, exactly. Fucking have it. But no, this is bad, and there's no excuse for it to be as bad as it was. So yeah, terrible main event.
No, couldn't even enjoy it like Matty did sound like. Again, listen to his audio, he was enjoying it on an ironic level. He was always going to when Pat McAfee's getting involved. And, unfortunately, we had to suffer through Michael Cole, going at Pat McAfee, pretending he's not his best mate and selling that terribly. And like I say, even the execution of the Pat McAfee stuff, coming up the ref shirt, getting the 2 count there and then getting RKO by Orton. None of that worked for me. And the finish didn't work for me either, with, say, Cody taking advantage of it and just looking like a schmuck altogether. And, like I say, post-match was horrendous as well. But I guess that's the main event of night one. But, like I say, I think the bad taste in everyone's mouth. I haven't checked their cage match today. Tell me if it's still trending below a 1 as far as ranking goes for night one. Maybe the good feeling that's come of night 2 was maybe change people's mind, but it didn't start well either. Obviously Cena coming out playing as speaking of TKO, doing a great impression of what are you going to say?
No, I've got.
Oh, sorry, I thought you had the rating. Yes, so Cena comes out dressed as Vince, pretty much with a hairstyle down and that as well. I've heard a few people say that he could play him in the film if a day ever comes, but. Obviously, first 2 matches on ESPN. I've got to sell to the ESPN, potential casual fan audience out there, JP, who might be just gasping for a new hobby that's going to give them 5 hours of content every week and a fucking 4-hour pay-per-view at the end of every month. Plus, there's another company to follow if you're really into it. But yeah, LA Knight and the Usos against Logan Paul, ISO Speed, and Austin Theory. We can get into that, and obviously we'll talk some Jacob and Drew as well. But I'll be honest, I don't think they did a great job of selling, that this is WrestleMania and it's a big deal. Again, lack of video packages, lack of investment, lack of, reason to sell somebody on it who's from the outside. But I always felt like by the end of night one, I don't know, maybe I'll eat my own words, JP, that I almost felt like we were following along on the Discord. Like it was, everyone was getting the digs in on this one. Not much really happens. Funny to see, main event Jey Uso, curtain jerking here on ESPN, him and Big Jim's, the 3D they hit or the 1D, whatever they call it. It looked like, when you play like No Mercy or one of the wrestling games where the wrestlers still do the animation, but they're all miles from each other because there's some kind of glitch. Yeah. Kind of looked like that. Terrible. Outside of that, I think the action was mostly nondescript, so it was fun ripping into it on the Discord. But by the end of the night, I think this might have actually been one of the upper level of things that happened on the show, and maybe the post match. And again, that's damn well faint players, but maybe the post match is part of the reason for that. I did enjoy ISO Speed it and a better splash than Punk with it, or the elbow on on the second night, and obviously turning him face. I guess he is part of hoping that maybe some of his view. I always think I don't think they're going to get any new people who've never seen wrestling before to sample it, but I don't know. Maybe he's got some. He's probably got some people in his chat. He's about that age to have loved Rey Mysterio and Jeff Hardy anyway back in the day that might have enjoyed this, but he was the sole little bit of enjoyment I got out of it. I show speed, and outside of that, it was just a match. But again, top level of this card, unfortunately, and yeah, we'd learn that by the end of the night.
Yeah, I mean, it was summarized to me when Joe texted me and go, "Who is the worker in this match?" Oh, it's really interesting, and I said,
"It was probably Logan Paul at one point."
He said it was Logan Paul, or he called him Eli Drake, which I love that idea of just refusing to call him LA Knight. And it's those two.
Drake.
And if they're the workers, and the bloke who was winning the world title at that same venue a year before is nowhere near that equation, you've got to ask a whole lot of fucking questions, really, don't you? What I'll say about ISO Speed is that his game, between the Bron Breakker bump in the Rumble that time and the splash he does here, because I'm a sucker. Part of the reason I like Kevin Knight, just those guys who can change direction in the air. It always goes back to RVD days as well. Although I think Kenta would have appreciated that kind of dive than what he got from RVD instead. But this was.
He's earned it over the years, mate. He's potatoed a few people in his time.
He has, yeah. Oh God, I think he potatoes everyone, that bloke, doesn't he? This is a match. It just felt it's match's marketing exercise as much as anything else. Who are the key demographics being hit by ISO Speed and Logan Paul being on there as well? And it's just like I understand the reason for it being on the card. I can never be excited by it, and the fact it was on ESPN just being just the whole reason for this kind of being on there as well. I wasn't offended by it. I just found myself laughing at the state of Jey Uso being there. Jimmy Uso, I've got no expectations from, but it's like, Jesus Christ, how these lads should just be henchmen on telly. That's as far as they can ever be at this stage. But it's, as a match, it was just like, okay, it was there. It was the most basic of matches, all set up to have that moment at the end, which did deliver on that, I have to say, on iShowSpeed with the splash.
That's it. And obviously, moving on from there, we had the, other ESPN match, which was the unsanctioned match with Jacob Fatu and Drew McIntyre. At which point, I wonder if maybe they were like, oh, yeah, we're going to do a Hell in a Cell, or we're going to do like a crazy, hard-hitting match, and then realised they were going to be on ESPN and not on pay-per-view. I don't know if that had anything to do with this. I'm not seeing that reported, but I don't think the work was bad there. It was just tame, wasn't it? Again, by the end of the night, I was looking back on it going, oh, maybe it was harsh on it, live on the Discord, ripping into it for, maybe the lack of level of violence in here. But I don't know if it was, maybe the lack of creativity when it came to the spots, even, down to Drew going back to the whole thing with the fucking phone and the tweet and all that. Mate, that's was it 2 years ago now when he first did that? It's like, come on, mate, we need to move on a little bit and, give your brother, your brother's got good seats, but, give him something else to do instead. Like, that didn't really work for me. What did work for me, though, match wasn't really up to much. It was, again, high-end just through process of elimination. What did work for me, absolutely, though, was getting to see Jacob Fatu in this spot. Obviously, to follow on Raw, it looks like Roman only likes to work with family members, so he's going to get the big spot coming up at Backlash as well. But, and come out with, full Samoan entrance and everything there. Getting, at the end of the day, as much as it was predictable, with it looking like Drew was taking time off, a very definitive win with the moonsault through the table. Looked emotional at the end of it. Looked emotional, the clips I've seen of him backstage and such as well. And to be fair, Drew McIntyre is going to be Drew McIntyre in WWE. He's at a certain level now, and he's always going to be at that level. Jacob is very clear the future, and in fairness to them, maybe they should have got here sooner. But big win like this, followed up by the Roman thing on Raw. I think, we're off to the races a little bit with Jacob, and I think, just looking at him in isolation, that's a real positive coming out of this weekend.
Yeah, that's what you take out of it. I mean, I thought he looked emotional at the start. He looked like he was kind of like tearing up.
You could see it in his eyes. You're absolutely right. Yeah,
really,
and the reaction to him too. Yeah, I felt the same at the second night, but we'll talk. Yeah,
and in some ways, I like that, because it adds to the kind of idea that this guy is a lot more emotional and erratic than, I'm not saying all emotion is erratic. That's a whole different debate for a whole different podcast, frankly. But like, just that idea that he is like that kind of person who's like sort of constantly on edge, I think really adds something to him. Obviously the right result. I didn't hate it as a match, but like you, I just sort of thought, well, this is just all kind of tame, really. Here's a toolbox. I thought, after seeing Jacob Fatu miss so many of his moonsaults and stuff like that, just miss people entirely, the fact he's nailing them on here is just like, oh, okay. They're the things. I just wanted that stuff to go well for him, because the idea of like, you want to see someone like this becoming like a bigger star. And it kind of did that. But it's at the same time.
Yeah, matter more than the match, I think.
It did. And that's your takeaway, is the outcome. But the match itself, incredibly forgettable. Like, I suppose, just do street fight. But then they had a street fight on night 2. So you're there just thinking, who, if anything, they should have the unsanctioned match. That feels like much more of the kind of like the blood feud, and just have these lads do stuff up the rampway and whatnot. But instead, it was just like your bog standard weapons, and Drew going back to getting the brother to go over there and do the photo and stuff. But yeah, like I say, a lot of that stuff's tight, but it's the right outcome. And having seen, and I won't go in, obviously we might go into Raw at the very end of it as well. Just seeing that is what the follow-up direction is with him. It's just like, yeah, they're the big things. If you put this into like a small video package, it'd make Jacob Fatu look fucking incredible, and it'd make the match look fucking incredible. But to sit through it was like 15 minutes of like, meh.
Yeah. Right, and I think as well, like the criticism we've had of Jacob in the past as well has been like some of the packaging doesn't match maybe fully his in-ring style at points, or maybe you're not quite sure who he is. He feels very assured of himself right now. You see that in the promos, and whether the match was up to much or not, you kind of see that in the way he carries himself, at least in the match, and the connection he's got to the crowd, which you can't buy. They're reacting to all of his catchphrases and to his entrance and all that as well, and he's hot right now, and hopefully they're going to get somewhere with him. So that's the biggest takeaway for me on that. But yeah, that took us into the, I say main show. It's all the main show, but at least for the Americans, the proper pay-per-view business end of stuff, which was opened up by the women's tag team title matches. We had obviously the issue that we had that we'd known about going into the weekend here with possibly Nikki Bella not being able to make it, and yeah, Brie Bella, mate, was joined by, and Michael Cole made that. How could anybody possibly know? What a big surprise by Paige, which had been reported over the weekend. But good job, anybody who avoided spoilers. And in fairness, and Garrett said it on the Patreon show that we did, like it was always going to get a gigantic reaction, and it did, And I think it's a key ingredient to WrestleMania. Whatever you think of Paige, and I think her run back into it is probably going to go the way her AW run did, probably the way the AJ Lee run kind of has in WWE as far as what level she's at compared to what the current women's wrestlers are. But a bit like when the Hardys came back about 9 years ago, or whatever it was, that big return pop is always worth something, and it was a moment, if nothing else. And we can talk the match as well, JP.
Yeah. Oh, do we have to talk the match? I mean,
again, not much meat on the bone when it comes to the match. Hey, the entrances we could absolutely talk about here. There was one corker here with Nia Jackson, Last Legend, as New School Demolition in the all white. That did look
good. I didn't know if it was like some weird, like sort of, obviously like the New School Demolition thing to go with. I would have preferred them to come out like sort of New School Road Warriors, because that would be the kind of closest vibe I would have thought go for that. Just a
weird you struggle to get Hawk in the build, mate, but anyway.
Yeah, fucking yeah. Just don't follow what those lads did out of the ring. In terms of, I really like the whole story becomes like the sort of Paige aspect to it, which in and of itself, it's like this is the high point of it. This is as good as it gets. And if anything, her work in there kind of showed herself to be like that's as good as her work was going to be. Like at this age, I don't think it's all downhill from here, because that's how good she is. She's not a great worker, and she's never going to be a great worker. And I think this is like going back to Divas Division stuff is always like, oh, I don't know. There's so much. Like, I have no nostalgia for that time period. I've no nostalgia for that sort of division. There was the novelty value of Paige coming through, but this Paige is like a completely different entity at this point. And it's just
there's a real Four Horsewomen, don't you know, mate? They posted an Instagram story. I'm sure the locker room loved that. I think it was Nikki Bella posted it.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to do. They're going to do. Yeah, they're going to do like a sort of old horsewomen versus new horsewomen, which they can't actually do because there's no fucking no Mercedes Moné in there. It is what it is. It was just like, this is the point in the evening where you get the big returning star, and they delivered on that, and it was a pretty nondescript match, and she didn't entirely shit the bed on day one. But it was fucking. And
they gave it a finish, which was a nice moment. I mean, I don't love it.
Yeah, they did. You just would have been livid if you'd bet. I think the bookies' favourite for this was Bayley and Lyra Valkyria. And at that point, when she came out, you're like, oh, well, they're winning it because this title means nothing in WWE's eyes. So naturally, they are going to be winning it. So it just sort of felt that you're killing time until one of them gets the win. And yeah. Paige gets to win using the Paige turner, don't he? So I was just
grateful. She stole from me, but anyway.
And she's not in AEW anymore, mate, so we don't have to see her outside of short clips on YouTube. So win-win.
Yeah, there you go. You're absolutely fine. Fatal four-way tag. Like you say, more about the big return. I don't think there's much more you can say about it. But yeah, moving on from there into the next women's match on the show, Becky Lynch and AJ Lee. Speaking of Paige, and speaking of people whose maybe best years were maybe at a time where we didn't have much else going on. This was another pretty much nothing match built around Jessica Carr and Becky Lynch, and built around that story rather than what was going on with AJ Lee in the ring. I said it to Matty, and I know he agreed. Like, I don't know what they were thinking with the build to this match. I've got a conspiracy theory on whether maybe AJ was supposed to win the Rumble, and doing the Elimination Chamber match was a way to backdoor the way into a match they wanted to do either way at WrestleMania. But it being a straight up match kind of felt a bit odd, considering it was a rematch there, and also the execution of it was I suppose it was. I guess this was one where giving it 8 minutes was probably smart, because really, how bad could it be in 8 minutes? But yeah, even down to obviously Becky cheating to win at the end of it, just Not a great story told, but can you tell a great story in 8 minutes outside of I hate the referee and the referee hates me? You don't hear the refs in the Prem, mate, on VAR giving shit like Jessica was in this thing. But yeah, again, not a great bow for AJ as far as this in-ring comeback.
I wish they did. I wish players did give referees that kind of levels of abuse for bad VAR.
There's more referees giving the players. I want to see that. That's the way that I want to learn.
Yeah, exactly.
Just call people a cunt, when they come over and they're diving and they're asking for penalties and they're poking over the shoulder when they're looking at the VAR screen, just give flipping the bird. Be good.
Yeah, just like Stuart Atwell shoving people over afterwards as well and telling them to get on the pitch, just setting off the managers as well. Yeah, doing stone cold middle fingers. I'm game for that on a football pitch. Good luck, referee, who tries that one. I was grateful that this was short. That was the thing, because anything more, like a second more, and it was heading towards kind of disaster. There were points I thought, just a pair of them, Becky was never in ring. And we did the podcast with Sophia, and when we spoke about this, it was like Becky's the weakest when it comes to like in ring out of the four horsewomen by quite some margin, and she's regressed over time.
And also feels a bit checked out, doesn't she, at this point in her career?
Yeah, absolutely checked out. And I wouldn't be surprised. It's like, what more is there to achieve? It's all downhill from here. So just go like out at that point there. And I think like this match, I thought it would have been more of a disaster. There were points I thought AJ Lee was going to get hurt. It was just like really, really clumsy.
I think for me, just the focus was all wrong. Like I say, being big on the referee as much as anything. But yeah, the work wasn't up to much. And to be honest, again, I guess the highlight / low light was the entrances. Like whoever the Wonder Years are, lip syncing for Becky's theme. And in fairness, I did think it was nice. AJ coming up with the little girls dressed as her and all of that. Thought that was at least a nice moment and felt a bit WrestleMania. So it got a little bit WrestleMania, JP, a little bit WrestleMania.
It did. It actually reminded you of the Bianca Belair entrance from a couple of years ago, and that was really good. And I didn't mind that because that's part of WrestleMania. That's part of the spectacle side of it. I mean, I would say when they said the Wonder Years, I just went to the telly program that was on Channel 4 with Fred Savage back in the day. You remember that, do you? The Wonder Years. That ring a bell to you?
Oh yeah, it used to be Sunday afternoon. TV. It was great.
Yeah.
Was the name Kevin? Was it the main character?
That was it. Yeah. And he was like the dick of an older brother and stuff like that. I thought it was going to be them. I thought this is a weird tie-in, and it was like, oh no, it's just a band. Okay, and it was just standard fucking stuff. Like I say, the entrances, and it was short. They're your positives you take out of that.
Well, moving on from there to most people's highlight of the night before we're done with night one, which was Gunther and Seth Rollins. Obviously, notable for the return of Braun Breaker at the end of it, and his big long spear, which I will say the second one it did feel a little bit like Rollins, was a bit out of place, unfortunately. But the first one was certainly impactful there as well, and I think this was most people's pick for what would probably be match of the night. This was the one it did feel like watching on live, kind of turned around the Discord. I thought it was pretty good, and I think I'm just a harsh critic of Seth Rollins, and I also think as well, like I don't know the way Gunther was kind of positioned in this, especially again the big taking advantage win where he's like on the back foot. It felt, I don't know, he felt a little bit. I don't know if cowardly is really in his repertoire, although they do, go there, obviously, with the choke, the teasers here, the sleeper teasers with, nods back to the Jey Uso capital letters story from last year. But he was a bit too on the back foot for me. But the way moments to love, and I do, again, people were quite high on this, especially the elements of where Gunther was in control. And, Rollins is, as much as I slag him off, good enough to keep up with Gunther as far as pace of work as well. But yeah, I think it was a no-brainer to say this was the match of the night. But yeah, the consensus seems a bit higher than me. What say you, JP, with the people on this one?
It'd be match of the night, but if you would give me a star rating, I'd probably say 3.5 stars. And I don't mean that in any kind of bad, maybe 3.75. I wouldn't be breaking.
Yeah, Matty was scared we'd say that.
Yeah, I remember hearing him say that. And he's just like, I'm breaking 4 for this. And I just think, well, there's a degree of obvious. Actually, that kind of ties in because there's going to be a degree of live bias and everything else that comes along with it.
I promise, by the way, we're going to be very positive. Well, at least I'm going to be very positive when it gets to night 2 as well. Sorry, it's cathartic. We're getting it out there, JP. It was horrendous this night. And I don't know, this didn't even save it for me.
It didn't. It was just like, it felt like a brief moment of what kind of most matches at WrestleMania should be like. They should be like basically, just sort of a bit more time, because it felt like that was the one thing they got right. The idea of this being like 15 minutes long is kind of like a perfect length for it as well. And there was good moments in there. So you have like, the pedigree on the table and then the Rollins stomp afterwards in there as well. But like you say, I think it's just this idea of like Gunther. I wanted to see Gunther bullying Seth Rollins. It's not the cat, and ultimately it's like, why does Seth Rollins lose? It's because of Bron Breakker. And it's just like, oh, okay. And so, like, that's one of the things where I was just like, oh, fucking hell, we have to protect him, can't we? God forbid he just fucking loses. And Gunther is a guy that we're going with. And it doesn't really matter what you do with Seth Rollins, but,
Yeah, I think, like, what we were rumoured for would have been a better idea. Because, again, a bigger part of the problem as well, like, investment in this thing, it's like, it's thrown together on a couple of weeks' notice with a shit story that's kind of gone with it when the Bron Breakker, I know they wanted this moment with him coming out, but if he is fit, like, I probably just would have done the Seth match that had some actual real build to it, and hopefully found Gunther something, they should have, finding Gunther something to do is a ridiculous statement to say, but, they should have had something else for Gunther to do, whether that, even if it was the Rey Mysterio idea, it feels like, we're going to get into that at night too, they could have executed that on the night. Instead, we kind of got like this weird in the middle. It was a bit of a story match. It was a bit of a go out there and have a banger match. And then I think, like I say, maybe some of the dynamic I didn't love. I think again, another thing that felt like it was a little bit cut for time, maybe hated as well, and ended up just being, for me, on the lower end of those matches, as far as, Gunther's, match catalogue over the years, we're not going to be going, all right, well, it was, going through the matches and going through, like, the Ilya match and going through, like, the list of the Tim Thatcher matches and, the Sami Zayn match from WrestleMania and all the great stuff he's done in WWE. The Seth Rollins match is going to be nowhere near, is it? It's not going to be something we're going to be putting over at any point. It was just mid-tier to low-tier Gunther match for me. But, again, by a country mile, the best thing on this show. That's the positive thing you can say.
Also, I'm really bothered by the fact that Seth Rollins was bigger than Gunther. Like, that bothers me. Like, it's something I'm not.
Oh, we're going down that road again.
Yeah, I know. It's just it's one of these things. Like, mate, you're in Vegas. You need to honestly fill your boots with a bit of food here. Like,
I agree, but I don't know if it affects him as much. Like, I know Garrett's big, obviously, on that. Like, the stylistic change of Gunther. Like, I feel like, I think for me, like, obviously,
he's wrestling machine.
Yeah, and I think I spent a year of him in NXT UK. I think I heard Stripes saying he needs to eat some pies, and then eventually kind of have to just go, or NXT or whatever, and have to go, okay, fine. This is just what he is in WWE. I don't think it's ever really affected him. I think it's still he still worked as the big boss, Like I say, I love that Sami Zayn match from a couple of years ago, and, couple of, tweaks to his style. I think he had at that point. Like, I think he was, bleeding in a bit more of, like, the groundwork, as well as kind of being the monster without being the wide, tall monster. He's just kind of like, there's something, it's the way he carries himself more than anything. Like, I don't think it's ever actually affected the end product, and that's the biggest thing. But I do take your point. Like, it also, as I've said to Gareth through this entire time, like, would I prefer it, though, if he was aesthetically bigger? Yes, like, of course, yeah, I would prefer it. But I don't know how much it's affected the work as much as anything. The match of other things going against it.
The work is there, and the thing that he's got now is he's got this sort of like relentless cardio. So it's just changing him from being a bully into being a wrestling machine who doesn't let up, who's got a series.
He's still a bully too. Still,
have
you something to do with the seriousness he takes himself that makes it work?
Yeah. I mean, in a different world, like a different book, you just put Seth Rollins and Bron Breakker together, which has got the story. Fuck it, I'd have just had Gunther in the main event against Cody. Even if it was in a losing effort, like, you just think to yourself that immediately there's like the Seth Rollins match has more investment, and my God, we would have got a better main event if we'd had those in there as well. It's just, I think it's
positioning Bron for the future. They're making him the central part of the vision, and presumably after the Backlash match,
Yeah, you'd have to assume that that's the case, and it is part of their new generation
with them as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You've got, so I'm kind of like, I sort of look at, like, for Bron, like, it's amazing because when I saw him in NXT, I was so underwhelmed by him. I sort of wanted to love him. And then we went to WWE, I had like low expectations, and he surpassed them all. And he's come back and he's fucking gigantic as well. And it was almost like everything is about that moment with the spear. which when they did it on Raw, when they showed the opening video, this is what happened at WrestleMania, that was like the bigger focus rather than the match itself.
I saw it all over TikTok and whatever,
because
it made a great video just from the back, seeing him run all the way down. Like, it was a great shot, it was. You know, a moment again, you know, it was a great match.
And that's what it is. But yeah, as a match, it's just like it moves on. You've got this feud, and obviously we'll get towards Gunther and I have to assume Brock Lesnar for SummerSlam.
I don't buy the retirement, but we'll get into that.
Oh God, no. An uncomfortable retirement. We'll get onto that when we talk about night 2. But yeah, for me, 3.5, 3.75, no more than that.
Yeah, I'd probably go to somewhere near there from a star rating point of view as well. But yeah, moving on from there, obviously we had the Hall of Fame segment here with obviously AJ coming out, and obviously the big star of the night, Stephanie McMahon coming out.
Sakes.
I was scared we're going to get another hour worth of speeches. Thought Linda was going to appear from somewhere in the crowd. Hey, at least Vince wasn't there, and at least Trump wasn't there, mate. I believe he was in Vegas this weekend, but he's got obviously more important things to do, like, you know, World War X or whatever we're up to now.
And he won't be doing that. He'll be playing golf in Florida, because that's all he ever does. Or talking about the ballroom, like anything else but the actual job that he should be doing. But yeah, do you know what? When you were talking with Gareth, he said, like, was it an hour for that? And I was like, well, any idea of watching?
Sid got about a 30-second reference, you know. Demolition got about 10 minutes, yeah. Rodman got about 8.
I'm just because like you say, I think you said about Paul Bearer. I was thinking like Rick Rude as well.
Yeah.
And there's so many other people. John Tenter in terms of Earthquake and stuff like all of these people. It's like, it's not. For me, legacy is almost like when it's WWF.
Yeah.
And like before then, I'm fine with that being legacy. In sort of
now, it's just we can't be asked, innit? He's dead and we can't be asked. Yeah, it's a bit depressing, innit?
But he's a big part. Like, he is he's even a part of the Monday Night Wars, like not in any kind of like really sort of significant way, but he's so much more of a bigger part. Yeah. Oh, I thought he was disgusting how they treated him. I wouldn't have done that to Bad News Brown either. Yeah. But like, I understand being sort of shot down if you're doing one of the two as legacy, but I thought it was a really poor way to treat it. So you can get an hour on Stephanie McMahon, a person who wouldn't. The reason ultimately she is there is she's born into the family, and whether or not she's any good at the job, my God, we were going to have to tolerate her for the longest amount of time. So yeah, I'll never watch any of that Hall of Fame speech. I took away a little bit of AJ Styles, and he seems very happy, put it this way, that he doesn't have to live like some sort of like relentless diet and stuff. And I'm not saying that in a slight of a way, because I'd be doing the first thing of just like, fuck it, I'm checking out. I've got an easy office gig and I've saved a few quid. So, but yeah. Hall of Fame.
I still feel like, call me a mark. I still wish she'd gone to AEW. But anyway, you got Dallas and Anderson a booking, so we'll take that. But anyway, before the Hall of Fame, obviously, it was that segment. And then we went into the last match we need to talk about from night 1, which was Liv Morgan and Steph Vicaire. And luckily, JP, this will be quick because the match would be quick. And yeah, I know people were very invested, you know, in this going into it and the story. And Steph was messaging me saying, you know, she was thinking this might be, you know, one of the matches of the night. And then the poor girls go out there and, you know, what do they get time-wise, even including entrances? Like, were they 10 minutes of the pay-per-view, if that, you know? I guess a bit of that time was taken up by, obviously, Liv's big entrance. And, yeah, it was, you know, got a bit of interference at the end with Raquel and Roxanne. And outside of that, again, they just didn't have the time to do anything here because fuck the women's division, I know, fuck the wrestlers. We've got, you know, a Hulk Hogan documentary to show you and whatever else adverts they got to feed Snickers into Benno's brain. Fuck knows what the thought process is here, but yeah, he deserved more.
Whatever that advert Miz was in, I've forgotten now at this point, but he turned up in a load of adverts as well. This was, yeah, I have to say the Liv Morgan song, not good at all. Like, that's not me. It is. It is what it is. But this was the shortest match of the night on there. It was 6 minutes 51 in terms of wrestling. So even that opener was there. That's kind of unforgivable, particularly when you're not up against traditional pay-per-view constraints. And how much time was there between I swear, was there like 40 minutes between this and the main event? So there's no reason why this should have been so short. Particularly when Liv Morgan is never going to be like my favourite women's wrestler on the planet. But you know what? She's a lot better than I ever expected her to be. And she's popular with that audience as well. And Stephanie Vaquer is someone who's been really good on the come up and looks the part in there. It just did them so dirty by just giving them such little time. And like say, like a load of it is, you know, you got your interference and stuff like that. It's just like, that's kind of unforgivable. I'm not saying this needs to be half an hour long, but my God, like you're giving it such little time. Like you give 15 minutes to Jacob Fatu and Drew McIntyre, and you're giving this 6 minutes 51. It's an awful look as much as anything else, and it never stood a chance. I was amazed. I was watching it. It was like, oh, and it's over, and I'm like, what? What's happened? Because the time thing I don't look at that as being an excuse, particularly like, you know, I'm viewing it probably from a Netflix perspective, but you know, it's not the old days with a 3-hour pay-per-view cut off, and if you go over it, you get a massive fine. It's like that era's gone. Like it's fucking insane.
It is, and again, you know, as Chris Elliott saying in the chat there as well, a well-built match, you know, and really, obviously, at least for night one, you know, the most prestigious match in the women's division. What happens with the most prestigious match in the men's division? You know, 45 minutes at entrances we get for the main event. What do the women get? You know, less than 10. That's just, we should be in a world where it should be a conversation, shouldn't it? Which of these two matches should go on last? And maybe people would have that going in, but the company showed you what they thought, and, you know, what the executor did, and went absolutely nowhere. And Liv Morgan went over with that face breaker thing that she does. So, new champion, bit of interference as well, and that was that. Obviously, John Cena announced the fake attendance of the night. More on that on night two. We got Bianca Belair as well. It was a nice moment to coming out to announce she's pregnant there as well. So there was that too. Bit of an odd way to do that, but that was at least something pleasant on this night one. And speaking of pleasant, we also got an advert for Saudi Mania, which they've still not set a date on, GP. So we'll see. But I don't know. Was there anything else for night one you wanted to say? I think we've kicked it while it's down enough. I'm looking forward to we can be a little bit positive, I think, going into night two. But it has to be said, all time bad. If this was just WrestleMania, it'd be all time bad. And if they want to split these attendances and say that 100,000 people were there, well, I get to split them and say if we do another tier list, this will be rock bottom, and night two will get rated on its own. That's the rules, and I'm sticking to them now.
Yeah, absolutely. This was modern era. It's like fucking dreadful. Like, and it doesn't have any of those WrestleMania 1 excuses of we don't really know what we're putting together. Like, this is proper bottom of the tier list stuff. Like, fucking dreadful.
Awful. Well, night two
again. Yeah,
definitely not. Well, I'm sure we will whenever Matty's back. And actually, I do think Garrett's got thoughts as well. So hopefully, I'll chat to him about it at some point. But does take us in. Let's palate cleanse. We'll go to night two. We'll go to the Sunday, which, as we found out, proper WrestleMania night. It turns out on the Sunday, and we'll do the same again as we did with night one. We'll start with the main event, but there's plenty of positive to say, you know, especially the first couple of matches on night two as well that we can get into in a bit. But let's start with Roman Reigns and CM Punk in the actual proper WrestleMania main event, and it's me saying that as well. Like, I absolutely love this, JP. I really did. And maybe I'm programmed to, you know, Punk obviously bringing back the Miziera Canter, the AFI song, and I did get tagged 47 times when that happened, including a few private messages as well. Appreciate it all, folks. Everyone thinks of me when such songs come on. But I can't guarantee I was not in floods of tears in my living room, JP, but it did bring something out of me. That song does take me back to a certain place in life as well. You know, I'm not blind as well that it's happening while we're doing a match that's sponsored by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Vegas is in the background and all of that. And it's like, oh, this is very much WWE Punk, and I question, you know, how many of those fans necessarily knew the song as well. But I think they played it well in that they had him, you know, they had it as like the intro video, so it's kind of like background music. And for those who know, we get to enjoy it. Bit of an Easter egg, you know. They do Easter eggs in Marvel films, don't they, JP? Easter egg for the likes of Benno, so I'll absolutely take it. But it set the stage perfectly. The whole scene with him sat above the arena and all of that stuff, and you know, going through his career chronologically and just skipping the couple of years that he might have been somewhere else, maybe wrestling. Apparently, that doesn't exist anymore. Ring of Honor exists, but AEW doesn't. What a strange universe we all exist in, but absolutely loved it. Obviously coming out to the silence then, which again worked really well as like an effect. It felt a little bit at the start, like, is it a botch? Have they not realised that Miseria Cante is quite a short song? Like, did this go wrong? But I think it was clearly part of the plan. Looked like a megastar in his all white, obviously with all the tributes on the arm and the chest as well, and yeah. Just incredible, like superstar entrance stuff, and obviously the proper WWE Punk song, I guess, hits there, and he comes out, looks like $1 million, and skipping over as well. Obviously, Roman too looked like $1 million coming out to this one with his drummer and his opera singers and all of that, and just looking chiseled, including his teeth, but looking fantastic, looking like a gigantic star. And this, if night one didn't feel like WrestleMania, this felt every bit WrestleMania for me. It's two gigantic stars, in the current landscape, out there together, creating for me magic. I think we were worried about it on Weekend Show. We were on the live last week. We were talking about like, how's this going to work? What's this going to look like with their two different styles? And for me, they blended the styles perfectly. I enjoyed all of, the early exchanges. I enjoyed the fact that Punk was Roman, you get your little dramatic moments where he tried to do his little speeches and stuff like that, but Punk could punch him in the face, as he often said in his promos, and make it more of a fight. And there was definitely a stylistic difference there of Punk trying to use, very, not traditional wrestling moves, but very wrestling-y type moves. And then you get Roman, with the big power and the big spots there, but it's Punk who's getting the best of Roman in, the early stages of it, only to get a little bit of cocky. And then Roman comes back, and a big surprise for me, JP, was watching this one back today. Like, it felt like it was an age, unlike the night before, where it didn't really work, but it felt like an age before they got to the finisher spamming. But it's actually quite soon in the match. Roman comes back, and the first spear is very early, but I think I think it worked. It's a WrestleMania main event. I think you can, again, if everything else was going right in the match and the crowd investment is where it needs to be, and everybody's, consistent with their character, and all of those reasons, it will absolutely work. And it did, and all of like the finisher sequence, trade and stuff we can get into really worked well for me in this one. And just the overall story that they told in this one, where again, it's not necessarily Punk getting cocky, but it's Punk being maybe the slightly older, and Punk, just maybe not having it in the can anymore. And I don't think the commentary did a great job of selling it. I think on first watch, like I say, I was fully invested in this and fully literally standing. It was 8:30 in the morning or 9 in the morning, JP, and I'm fucking jumping around in here, and only had a couple of beers over the night. It was that early, but I was so invested in it, and I think the commentary maybe killed a little bit of the finish, but I think it was really well done, at least in the work the two of them did there with, Punk. It was kind of like, a bit of a no sell to the first spear, but, it wasn't even like an Ishii, very well done no sell, or like Ospreay's been doing a lot recently that I know some don't like. It was done in a way where it's like he goes for that slap and he just kind of dies on his arse, and he's literally got nothing left but to stand there and take the spear from Roman. I thought it was really effective. Again, it's been a mishmash. The build has not been perfect. It's been outright bad some weeks as far as this goes, but the one consistent was that, that through line of story of, Roman style versus Punk style, and Punk, well, maybe not the ideal thing to talk at your opponent as old, but that ended up being kind of the story here. The younger, faster, stronger, whatever wrestler won this thing, and Punk's now going to be licking his wounds. But it felt big time, JP. It felt like a proper stadium WWE main event, and your mileage might vary on, what that means to you in the grand scheme of things if we get into star ratings. But as far as example of the genre, or example of a big time WrestleMania match, especially in this Roman Reigns era / Cody Rhodes era that we've been in for quite a while now, I think this was at the tippy top for me. And yeah, I absolutely fucking love this thing. What say you?
Oh, given what most WWE main events for PLEs are like, this is at the top end of it. I mean, I think for what this needed to be, given what the main event was like on night one, it was like a world away from it. Like I said before, 10 minutes longer, and feels shorter than how the night one main event was. I thought it was just in terms of like the pacing and the flow, like it worked. And like I say, in terms of the story, I took it as it did, and I took the story of it as like it's like a war of attrition. And it's just the guy who's just that bit older is the one who's ultimately not able to kind of live with it. So they're like, and that as a result, like it gave you I think as what you wanted from a WrestleMania main event. I mean, I've seen a lot of people say 5-star. That wouldn't be, I wouldn't be close to that. If I was giving it a star rating, I'd probably go like 4.25. I may not like it as much as you did, but that's not to say I didn't like it. I thought like this was the best match of the weekend, and it was the one that felt the biggest as well. And it did that thing of made me forget about the build. And he just took it as like, it's two big stars colliding, and it's for supremacy, and they don't like each other. So there's that bit of needle in there, and it worked, and it absolutely worked. And I thought that they never lost the crowd at any stage sort of during it. There's stuff in it. I hate that spot where it's like, he hits a GTS, and was it Roman goes into the ropes and sits down and then leans back and falls on his shoulders. That kind of stuff, I can do without it. But weirdly, it reminded me of the job they did, which they had with the triple threat with Seth Rollins the year before, and about how that kind of like
that didn't exist, mate. No, we pretended that through the whole build.
Yeah,
it was mentioned once until on commentary,
which is incredible, because I thought that match was great as well.
Yeah, it was.
Like, I really, really liked that. And it felt like a big time main event from what felt like in this, the two biggest stars in the company. And it's a proper, like, for Punk, I think there was that element of he's headlining a Sunday WrestleMania. So he's headlining a proper WrestleMania in a one-on-one match with the guy who is the biggest star in the company. So you're going to get that bit more from him there as well. So like, I thought this is big time stadium wrestling. You said it before. This is what it needs to look like. It has to be kind of simplified, and it works to their strengths as well. So they're not going to be able to have like an AEW style main event, and nor should it be for this kind of scenario. And it delivered.
Yeah, you want to, reach to the cheap seats, and you want to reach the, the extra people that are watching at home and whatever. But I was just going to say there, I do think as well, like, with these two, there were some spots in there that were, I liked, the spot, like say, going into the ropes where Roman kind of, ends up making Punk collapse. I think that played into the story well. But I loved, this felt like a match where, I am a Punk homer. I love CM Punk, and I'm still gonna, even if he's 60% Punk compared to what he was in AEW, I'm gonna be like, it's still good. Like, but I recognize, promo wise, I think he's not been at the races. Really since the Collision days, I think he's not the same Punk he was before on the mic. But I think in ring, still had very strong matches in WWE when it's come to, at least, again, like you say, within that WWE style and within, the framework that you've got there that, that has, things that you almost need to do in this setting. And I think he delivered it in a way that, like, to be honest, like going back 15 years to his prime, or at least his physical prime, I've not seen many big Punk matches where he botched as little as he did here. Damn, with free praise, but like there were a couple of moments, the moment in the corner and stuff like that. But really, his execution was on point too. He kept up with the younger Roman in there as well, and it delivered loads of memorable, great spots in there. Like you say, the one in the corner where he was going for the elbow, and we all thought he was just teasing it. A little bit feels a bit odd that he did a bit AW actually, that he was doing the spot that pretty much I Show Speed did the night before. But again, eventually builds to him hitting the big elbow. I even enjoyed the bits where it felt like
on that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it looked great as well, and his elbows don't always look great, but I enjoyed the little bits where it felt like maybe the chemistry was there more than I thought it would be, but there were little moments where like Punk was like leaning back for the Terry Funk, punches in the corner, and you could tell Roman, true to form and what this feud has almost been, like on a meta level, being like, we don't do that shit here, and like pulling him back in the ring. There were a couple of those moments there, but there was loads of stuff I enjoyed in this, even down to, again, Punk looking a bit pathetic going for the spear, and Roman, I think that was the point where he had the Ula Fowler around his neck, and Roman just catches him in the choke, because again, he's the bigger man, but that leads to like, Punk bridging kind of out of that, or headstanding out of that, and turning that into the Anaconda Vice. Thought that was good, and then turning the second one, I think it was, into the roll up that he did as well. Like there were really great moments in this, some by design, some maybe possibly by accident, but they did, as Roman said on the Instagram afterwards, they created magic together. They really did. And I don't know if I'm settled on a star rating for me, but I think as a Mania main event, I think it was absolutely up there. And Platt's in there 4.75. Maybe I'd play it safer and go 4.5. You know, but
Yeah.
absolutely loved it. Really, really, really loved it, and yeah, loved it for all of the reasons that we laid out there.
Yeah. I mean, I need to go back and see it again. That's my provisos. I've only seen it the once. I haven't had the chance to do the rewatch of it yet. And I think that's the thing that when I enjoyed it, I was just able to sort of like sit there and watch this in like a flow state. So it just sort of like feeling like, okay, I'm watching spectacle. And I was watching it alongside Vicky. And even she was like, kind of like, oh, this is like proper wrestling, is how she viewed it. She was like, okay, this isn't silly. Like, feels like a proper clash between two sort of big guys on a really grandiose stage. And, you know, they needed it. They needed to deliver on this as well. You want to see them roll it back. Like, there's no reason not to do it. Although, is this probably, I'd say, Punk will can still headline another Mania. I think he's probably got one more.
Oh, that was the point I was going to make before, yeah. I knew he was losing anyway, because of course he was, because obviously, you know, politics for the reason Roman and Cody both had to win this Mania, I think, because obviously, they weren't wrestling each other, so one of them didn't have to lose, and I think that's how we ended up with these two matches, instead of the obvious Roman Cody match. But the second that Punk got, like I say, I did the entrances the other way around there, but he got the second entrance, didn't he? He got the last man out at WrestleMania entrance. I was like, they're not giving you the win as well, Phil, mate. And also, you know, I think he'll always still have that asterisk. It's a bit like Liverpool winning the title in COVID. It's like, you main evented WrestleMania on the second night this time, Phil, but it wasn't really for the real belt, was it? And you also didn't win. So, you know, you still got those two little, especially the not the real belt thing, going against them. So maybe at some point, you know, that's the other one he's got. That's the other white whale, mate. A night two, preferably not in Saudi for the proper belt, and he wins. So still got goals, mate. But people are going to remember the match, aren't they? This is the thing that hopefully is going to stick out in people's memory from the Sunday.
Yeah, when you say it like that, really, you can have that. It's my one last chance to win the title at WrestleMania. That's what I'm looking to do. You can tell that story. You only get to do it once, and he won't want to do this in Saudi. But it's like it's whether or not he holds it together, and like that's always the fear, is that there's that physical kind of breakdown, and we didn't see it here. And I was
Randy Orton saying he's going to wrestle another 4 years, so you know,
no fucking
at least.
No,
maybe big win. Never thought I'd be so invested, but I was, and it was just great all-time WrestleMania main event stuff. Can't say enough good about it. But that takes us. I suppose we can talk the undercard as well. Love Platt's comment, by the way, there as well. Yeah, Punk versus Joe kills it again. You know, bit of Miseria can't tear that jacket. You know, and I love the white jacket, look great as well. But yeah, the original jacket, all of it. It's always and a Samoan Joe in the ring, perfect for Benno. So I'm always designed to love it.
I will say this as well: the lack of discourse about what is this song? Why hasn't it been explained to me? That Chris mentions here in the chat, which I did think that at the time. I was like, no fucker's going to be mentioning this.
The gobshite who tweeted it originally doesn't even deserve his name being mentioned, but he did do he said, so it wasn't like, is this the Terminator theme, this song? He said, is that the Runner Man theme, I think he said. So at least even he's making fun of himself at this point. But yeah, but again, I actually do think it would have been wrong for them to use it as his full entrance. I don't think there would be enough familiarity to do that. Perfectly utilised. And yeah, made everybody happy. So great stuff. And yeah, I think that it wasn't the only great thing on night two. We can talk. Maybe they lost me a little bit in the middle, but the open of this card was also great. Obviously, we had Cena Rhodes again doing nothing. More on that later. He does get up to something. Maybe the real highlight of the show, JP, I can get into. But we kicked off on ESPN with Femi and Brock Lesnar, and fuck me, Femi smashes through Brock Lesnar. Did not have that on my coupon with how dominant Femi already was in the build to this thing. But this is what I mentioned earlier. You know, you said that about Jacob, but you can almost see it in Femi's eyes that he also knew like what a emotional, and maybe you could see a bit of emotion in those eyes as he walked out, and obviously everyone's doing the strut with him, and like the reaction to him, you could tell that kind of got to him as well. Yeah. And then on top of it, I'm sure what he was also thinking, I'm going to fucking smash through Brock Lesnar here. And he fucking smashes through Brock Lesnar, the Paul Heyman special here. Like, I believe you got the times in front of you, JP, but I don't think it's fucking more than a couple of minutes. As obviously, he ends up lifting him up with the last ride type powerbomb that he does, which looked incredible. Obviously, Lesnar bumping all over for him and sell him big time a defeat. We can get to the post match in a little bit, which was felt a little. Speaking of Hogan, a little bit Mania 6, but we'll get there. But as far as in ring and as far as putting somebody over, like, you know, I'm not somebody who wants to see Brock in WWE if he is gone. Good riddance. But if we're evaluating the performance, I think the performance was great, and I think, you know, Oba Femi looked amazing here. And again, another, if Jacob Fatu was a positive, Oba Femi is a huge positive in WWE right now.
Oh God, yeah. And what's amazed me is how quickly it's kind of transformed, because when he came in and had that match against Cody, it was like really to relatively little fanfare. I know me and Matty had spoken about, I think, on the Grappies in like late 2024 about like, this is a guy who's a breakout star. It's taken that just that little bit longer to get there, but Jesus Christ, I hate to say, in fairness,
5 minutes, I can't believe it.
Yeah, 4 minutes 46 is the time for this. Wow. And it was booked perfectly. And it was as definitive a job of putting someone over as what it should be. I would say that all the stuff after the match was something that I think it was an element of trying to claw something back, because I don't think, having seen on Raw and the reaction to Oba Femi, that this isn't something that's going away. And this isn't a guy that you wait until next year's WrestleMania before you put the title on him. I think you kind of go with him. And he does, he's not your standard just sort of big muscly guy. He's got a lot about him just in terms of the power, the charisma. There's a brilliant, on the World beforehand, they had a brilliant kind of documentary about him and how he came from Lagos and all the stuff, him going to University of Alabama and all of this kind of other stuff. It's a brilliant video package if you get a chance to see it. And it was just so fucking dominant. I mean, I just loved the moment where he gets F5'd. You're kind of assuming that's it. And even the Suplex City stuff was it was 2 suplexes, 2 belly to backs, and it's kind of pretty much over from there. And he gets up, delivers the choke slam, and Brock's bumping like a motherfucker. And it was just really, really definitive. And the whole crowd, they're doing the dance along with it. It's massively over. And it's just
it's a great visual, isn't it? It really is.
It's a brilliant visual. It was a brilliant way to start the show, just in terms of trying to eradicate a lot of the ill will that people had from the Saturday. That they delivered on this, and they delivered on it in the way that you would. Because I was fearful. We've seen this story before. It's just Brock shows a bit of ass, but I think, as you said when you were doing the preview with Matty, it was is it going to be the usual? Well, you're in the match with me, so that's as good as winning, isn't it? That's as you're getting the rub by just being in the same visual with me. It's nah, it was this is how you put someone over as being a star. And guess what? Feels like a fucking star when he came out on Raw and he delivered that one line, and he's just bang, that's fucking it. And what's great is just his stage presence. Like I say, he was really emotional, but this is a guy who's kind of held it together, and he just carries himself like he's a fucking main eventer.
It's stage presence, it's connection, it's all of those things, and he's a decent talker too. To be honest, I would have had him say more on Raw. I would have had him follow up what he said on the post show and just challenge Roman Reigns, but they go on the Jacob Root instead, so fair enough. But, only a minor quibble, but you're right. All the things you listed there, obviously the choke slam and all of it, the counter, the F5, everything. It was perfectly laid out for what it needs to be. I just don't believe the post-match, if we're going to get into that. I don't, very clearly, I think Minneapolis, SummerSlam, and the way they've been couching everything when they're talking about it, it appears that Brock Lesnar is retired. They even said it on Raw, and they did the little tribute and stuff like that. But I think, it was Matthew who said it to me first, very clearly. The Heyman stuff is going to be leading to Gunther getting his favor out of Heyman, and that favor is going to be one last Brock match. Bit of a strange way to get to it, but to me, it feels like maybe I'm being double worked here and he is actually retired, but I don't think so. I think we're getting that SummerSlam. They got 2 nights worth of tickets to shift in Minneapolis. It would be in Minnesota. Sorry, it would be a huge mistake not to to have Brock go out there on a sword. And also a huge mistake if they're never going to do a Braun Breaker match, for example. Like to never do a Gunther match seems like a huge missed opportunity. Especially again, I was just looking at it going, well, what has Brock done since? Again, it's strange that he even came back for this mini run if he was planning on retiring so soon anyway. But what's he actually done in this mini run? Like, you forget that fucking Cena abomination that took place at the tail end of last year. Like, at least use that pay-per-view to do a Gunther match or something like that if you know he's going to retire. So I think it tells me it's still on the docket at some point, unless something's gone massively wrong, or like you said earlier, he's like you and Garrett looked at gunnying, and you need to eat some more pies, mate. And maybe Gunther didn't eat enough pies for him by WrestleMania season to justify a match. I don't know, but I think Heyman will be in his ear and we'll get that match.
I think he will be, because I mean, it was partly there was an interview he gave. And he said he'd signed a contract for a few months, and that was only like sort of a couple of months ago.
Well, let's see what script, as Andy said there. You know, maybe, like I say, genuinely was just like, don't fancy it. Oh, I'll put Ober over, but I'm not putting any of these other gigs over. See ya.
If there's one bloke who you would take it from, and if you want the real hipster experience of this, is like it was Brock Lesnar in New Japan. It's like, I'm just going to leave. I've got the title, and that's it. If he went away,
he tried to leave when Vince got pushed out, didn't he? The gobshite, you know. Remember that? How fucking loyal he was. More loyal than Ron Killings it.
It is, and it's you know, you think to yourself, like, with all of the stuff around Brock Lesnar and just the thank you Brock chants and stuff just made me feel really fucking uncomfortable. Like didn't like that. Didn't like I didn't like the thank you Vince chants and stuff that apparently they've been like fucking doing. That crowd do not care. They don't care. They don't. I'm not saying each and every person in there, but there's a substantial amount of them who just don't give a shit. They're not remotely bothered by it, and they're never going to be bothered by it. If he didn't come back, fine. We would move on, and then that would be the end of it. I mean, ideally, he should be putting over a couple of people. If you think about the amount of people who've put him over, like everyone has at one point or another, like put Brock over massively. So, he's this for what it was. I just thought that stuff was all so long. And it was like, you know, like if he just sort of walked to the back and looked sad and he just sort of hugged Heyman and laid the hint, rather than being so drawn out, because at that point then you're talking about Brock Lesnar and not talking about Femi, which when we think about it, that's kind of what we should have just been discussing when just talking about this
like a mistake.
How great Femi is. Instead, it's like, well, when is Brock retiring? Who's he going to be? And it's just like, that should not really be the conversation.
That was a negative, definitely. Maybe they could have done it on Raw or done it another. If it is a way and it isn't Brock shooting or it isn't like a shoot, could they have got to it another way and got to the match another way? But outside of that, great bit of business, great way to start, as Andy said in the chat there. Yeah, if Brock had won, I think it would have just carried on the bad vibes from the night one. So great to get some good vibes to start night two, and those good vibes continued with, again, it felt very WrestleMania having that, you know, for better or worse, your big man Brock Lesnar match did feel very WrestleMania-y. So did the ladder match. And I'm not really a fan of modern ladder matches, really, JP. I think I got bored of them about 12 years ago, but there was something about this one. Really enjoyed it. Obviously, Penta going over in the end, so he didn't look like such a loser for basically suggesting this match himself and inviting all his mates to come and have a big match with him. But I just thought it was really well worked. I think there was definitely an agent somewhere who was a stickler for, all right, lads, every now and then they go, someone needs to go for the belt. And when you go for the belt, sprint for it. That tends to be what happened. There wasn't a lot of slow climbing. People were genuinely trying to win this thing. And then also, it had the dressing on the side of some genuinely, you know, creative spots in there. Obviously, everyone's going to remember, you know, Penta in the Mexican Destroyer on JD McDonough's gigantic head. But, you know, the other big one, Rey Mysterio with the senton to Rusev, who went fucking crashing through that ladder and took all the impact, really. So it was very well laid out, really, for, you know, Rey Mysterio at the point that he's at in his career. But Javon Evans had a couple of, you know, great spots in there, obviously leading into the finish as well. But I felt like everybody had the moment to shine. Even, you know, like say Rusev there taking the cutter from Javon Evans as well. If you just have to suspend disbelief a little bit as he kind of starts falling before he gets to him. But I don't know. Back in the day, you know, wrestlers would fall backwards before SHOWNOTES moonsault. You know, it's kind of part of it. If you speak, WWE are actually good at that. Where, you know, when they show you the replay of something that looks a bit fake, it's like slow mo, and then when you get to the fast bit, the fake bit, they fasten the clip up and it just goes through like a bolt of lightning, and it mostly looks good, and that's pretty much what they did there. But I think a lot of great car crash moments, but it felt creative. It felt like a breath of fresh air. The talent in there is mostly talent that I think feel fresh right now, and talent that the people are into, as well as obviously the veteran Rey Mysterio, and just great time. Maybe not for Dragon Lee, Rusev and JD McDo, Google me, but those three did got that entrance cut. But outside of that, everyone looked like a star coming out. Penta got the big entrance at a WrestleMania. What a wild thing to think about as well. And just a great time. And 2 for 2 on the ESPN pre-show / main show, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, definitely 2 for 2. I mean, I'm like you. I've seen incarnations of this match so many fucking times. I was trying to think of the last time I saw this in like AEW. It wasn't that long ago that we had like some mad ladder match.
That's the point, though, isn't it? You forget about them the next day. Yeah. This is less forgettable, I would say, than those examples.
That was, and it was partly. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said about people actually sprinting up to try and get the belt. There was none of that long, slow, drawn out, protracted. And it was like everyone was in the right spots.
It makes so much sense when all these are so fast, you know?
Yeah. And it was delivered with pace. Penta is massively over. Like, if we're thinking about like what is one of the big benefits of WWE this weekend is finding a group of people of which to go, you need to go with some of these guys. This is like where you're going to next. And Penta felt kind of like that, which isn't a surprise to us, even though we'd always have the belief that Phoenix is the better of the two wrestlers there. Javon Evans, who had a couple of sneaky quid on to win this, he always kind of stands out. I'm a bit like kind of uncertain about like where his ceiling is, because I can't see him as like a tippy top guy. But at the same time, he is, for a match like this, absolutely perfect. There was nothing like this on either of, so it kind of stood alone. It felt pretty unique, given like everything else that had been on here, that this was your car crash match. And it delivered, and it was 15 minutes of fun. And following up from that opener, it was just like, get in. I'm completely all right with this. I enjoyed this a lot more than what I thought I would do. I'm probably just completely desensitized to a lot of the spots. I kind of expect it like you see Canadians and stuff on the ladder, but I think this crowd were just itching to see stuff like that, and then they got that. So it was like the easy kind of fan service. So cynics like me and you might just think, I've seen this a load of bloody times. For those guys, they were like desperate for it, and it delivered. And it was the right result in terms of Penta going over.
For sure. Well, we go from there into the US title match. I think things take a bit of a dip in the middle of the card here as Trick Williams and Sami Zayn, another one of those that's had, I think they've mostly managed to navigate it, mostly through the good work of Sami Zayn. I think that's true of the build, and I think it's true of the match, because dynamics are all over the place here. Like, fuck me, if you book a company and the fans turn on Sami Zayn as a babyface, like, you're not doing a good job by any metric there, but that's what's happened, and whether it's Sami being the naily man or whatever logical reason you want to give to it, Trick Williams is the babyface here, really, and a lot of fans are. Sami Zayn is the heel, and, so I did see some theories about that night one main event. Were they trying to do a double turn? Turned out they weren't, especially when you see the finish and what's come of it. But here, I think it wasn't a great match, and no. I think that's the thing. Trick Williams has not got that gear in him yet. So again, this was one that was probably shorter. This was probably shorter by design, if anything, not to leave him out there for too long. But I think for the situation they were in, I actually thought Sami Zayn did good work here. I think Sami Zayn managed to be consistent with his character, but he was doing things in a way where, you can't tell me he didn't know he was going to get booed. You can't tell me he didn't know the reactions he was going to get, to the way he worked the match, even down to, like I say, like they presented like Little Yachty, Matty said he's going to check his back catalogue of him. You can probably lend him some CDs, mate, or so I don't think he's ever made music on cassettes, but maybe you can get some vinyl. But like down to the fact that he's like the interfering manager, but he almost came across sympathetic. Like they almost made it like it was Sami that went after him, and that he kind of got booed, and then it got cheered when he got it, involved there properly. It was like I think they knew all that going in, so like they made the best of a bad situation. But yeah, overall, an underwhelming match. Even if I think there were things to respect about the way Sami Zayn approached the match.
Underwhelming, but not a disaster. And also, I probably just had relatively low expectations for it. It was like, what do they want to achieve? They see a lot in Trick Williams, which I get from that kind of character perspective, but there's a lot of stuff about the work that needs to improve for him to be at that top level. But him being, what is it, US champion, like, fine. Like, that's all right. That's probably as good a placement to have him at the moment in there. Like the stuff with Little Yachty basically acting like he's like Yachty. His Bobby Yachty. Sorry,
like a yacht. I'm sure he's a yacht.
That's what I thought. I'm sure I heard one of them say Yachty.
And maybe that's the Americans though, and how they pronounce it. You know, there's a bit of that too.
But you don't say yacht. You know? Can I have a ride in your yacht, please? Look at you. You must be loaded. You've got a yacht out back. You'd be like, what? I've got a yak. Right, one of those things you find in fucking Nepal. Like, okay. But for this, it did, like you say, I think Sami Zayn did as... Because they didn't lose the crowd. The crowd wanted Trick Williams to win. They got a Trick Williams win. And that you have to go to Sami Zayn for that sort of working. Even if I, like you, hate the dynamics. It's just like, we were talking about, not that long ago, Sami Zayn headlining this WrestleMania felt like a viable proposition. We were doing potential Mania matches, sort of after SummerSlam last year. That could be a direction they go in. There was things of him being right near the top of the betting for the Royal Rumble and stuff like that. And it does feel like we're a world away from that, like at this point, given how this was.
Maybe he's a healer, but he'll make it work.
He'll make it work. He'll do the absolute best of a bad job. It's just, I never fancy them to like, and he's just such a lovable baby face. It's just go with him as that. But yeah, job done. Underwhelming, but we've seen enough Trick Williams matches, particularly like his ones in TNA, where it's just like there's nothing to be particularly excited about him in ring. But he's over, and we don't have Booker T on commentary with him, which is good.
It was fine. It was fine compared to the next one. I think my genuine low point of the night was the next match. The street fight between the Demon, Finn Balor, and AAA Mega Champion Dominic Mysterio. Like, they really like put a pin in this one because like Dominic Mysterio coming out looked great, you know, with all the luchadors with him and the throne and whatever, you know, wind up Dominic Mysterio. I was genuinely excited when he walked back. I am a big Dominic Mysterio fan. Like, and I think they did a really good job, at least in the early stages of building this one. It's lost a lot of steam, and part of the reason it lost steam, especially on the night here, is going to this Demon character, because like I think what could have been a really good personal grudge match with a bit of layer to it and a bit of, you know, bit of depth to it, potentially could have been there as well, but I could imagine them being quite creative with it. It turned into just one-dimensional. Finn Balor pulls spooky faces and makes weird noises, and Dominic Mysterio runs away, and that was pretty much the match. And like, I think there was so much more to mine here from the personal issue that actual Finn Balor had with Dominic Mysterio, especially coming off. I've enjoyed Finn for the most part this year. I think that Belfast Raw's got a lot to answer for, but like, it's the most people seem connected to him as like a human being, and this babyface run felt like it was a good thing for him, and they've just gone back to something that, if anything, you ever hear him talk on interviews about the team, and he's always like, yeah, it was fun dressing up, you know, on New Japan shows, and you know, that PCW show and whatever, as Venom or whoever, but like, yeah, weirdly Vince McMahon made it a character, and it kind of sucked, and you know, yeah, didn't really make any sense to me. I'm glad that we don't do it anymore, only to bring it back and do exactly all. If anything, it was worse to me because he just looked like a fucking nerd, you know, snarling and making weird noises at the camera with his vaguely offensive makeup and whatever he's got going on. Like, it's just horrendous, you know. Watch the Mighty Boosh if you want to see this character, because like that's pretty much what it is. It's the worst of Finn Balor. I'm not even a big fan of him, but I think, yeah, again, they did them dirty here in the booking of it.
Oh, it is the worst. And the crowd reacted like it's the worst. I'd genuinely love to hear from those people who are like, yeah, I don't mind Finn Balor, but I love it when he's the Demon. Just fucking love it. Who are they? Who are you? What is your reasoning behind it? And what is the thing that you like about it? Because like the whole idea of this feud is there's this deeply personal, like, kind of feud between these, like, from the guy who's taking supremacy in the Judgment Day stable to the guy who's always been seen as the kind of like de facto leader, and all of this kind of stuff. And they just move away with it as soon as they introduce the Demon. And like you say, being vaguely offensive. I mean, I've always said about the Papa Lazarou kind of like comparisons from League of Gentlemen, but it's hard not to look at it as like, it's a guy doing blackface. in 2026. And it's like you kind of look at it and go, like, I don't. Even then, it makes no sense. And all he's doing is he's sticking out his tongue. And there are points I was watching this match going, his tongue is massive. It is fucking massive. It might be the makeup. It might just be me. But like, I was kind of bored by it. And I loved it when Dominic Mysterio came out with that entrance. I thought it was great. He's managed to find, like, I mean, effectively, he is like the character of Eddie Guerrero, but he's only really got the work rate of like a Perro Aguayo Jr., but he merges them so well. I remember saying with Matty, it's like they would look for the white whale of who the big Hispanic star is. It's like, you've got him. It's Dominic Mysterio. If you see him on AAA and how he delivers the promos on there, he's fucking tremendous. And it felt like kind of a waste of him, like having to be in there against the Demon. I can't get beyond that character. I hated it the moment it came out. Like, I wish he'd never worn any paint. I mean, it's a different world. He should be going out there with a black Republic of Ireland shirt, like, and that's what he should be doing. And he should be taking the piss out of some of the crowd and doing like sort of shooter stuff. That's fine by me. And the crowd would have been so much into it if this had just been booked as this battle between these two former mates. And that's all it needed to be. It probably wouldn't have been fucking like amazing, but it would have delivered. And here, I was just like, nah, I couldn't give a shit.
Well, moving on from there, and I'll just say, yeah, even back then I thought he was bang average, but that's just me. Moving on from there, Rhea Ripley and Jade Cargill for the women's title. Yeah, I mean, but mostly notable, actually, we've got to start with the weird crypto billionaire, Adam Weitzman, who was a guest commentator. I'm not going to make the John Pollock joke that we're going to have somebody joining us on the podcast. He paid $500,000 to sit with us. But again, everything is for sale, isn't it, in TKO, except for the fact that he didn't give the cunt a microphone. But if you've read into him at all or seen his tweets or there's news articles about him out there, Bitcoin millionaire, billionaire, or whatever he is, fraudster, billionaire, words you could use to describe this man, I'll just use geek, as he sat there quietly because, like I say, they didn't make him up because at least they knew better than that. But what a fucking mark.
Oh my God. That was just weird. That was the weirdest thing. Like, that's product placement. At that point, it was like, you know, you're thinking to yourself, this just looks weird. It's like, what I want to do is I want to sit ringside for the women's world title match. I'm just going to sit there and watch. It's just like, that's just fucking odd at the best of times.
Yeah, you'd say no to that, wouldn't you?
He's crypto, he's billionaire. Having looked, I've done a bit of looking at a bit of stuff about Adam Weistman, and he's just like shifty as fuck. Like the whole thing, like it was just an odd thing. I mean, it does kind of prove anything's for sale, really. Like anything is for sale. So I don't know. Like, are we going to get this? Are we going to get loads of is Sam Altman going to go on there and just start plugging AI stuff? Are we going to have all sorts of weird billionaires turn up?
You're going to get like the demon Finn Balor with I don't know, he's going to paint himself up with Castrol GTX across his forehead or something like that. It's common, but it's just fucking weird, and everyone felt uncomfortable about it.
He's got the demon makeup and he's got crypto.com written across his chest. Wouldn't be surprised. Wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
But was a distraction from the match with Rhea Ripley and Jade Cargill here. I think going in, again, this felt like something where it was, two protected Triple H pet projects. Rhea Ripley's insanely over. You've always got to mention that whenever you see it on these big shows. Definitely one of the most over wrestlers on the roster. A match that we said it, though they were always going to go in and, practice it within an inch of its lives. I felt like it was ropey in the early going.
Yeah.
Don't think it got great, but, we can get into it. I felt like the finish was executed quite well. And I think the last 90 seconds of the match that most people are going to remember, we're done well. Everyone's feet were in the right place because there are many moments where Jade Cargill's don't feel like it. She does remind me like a Sid or, one of those old wrestlers who kind of had two left feet who went, were athletes in many ways, but not in the way that necessarily makes you a good ring wrestler sometimes. Yeah. She just seems to kind of still have that about her, but I think they played it safe as houses. It wasn't great by any means, but again, I think the result is going to be what's important with Rhea going over, and it felt big, and it felt like a big deal. She beat Jade Cargill and overcame the odds. Felt like a big deal that Jade Cargill used the fucking one-wing angel in this, of course. Kenny being nice as always, saying it's fine by him. But yeah, didn't expect to see that on a WrestleMania. But outside of that, what say you on this one? Yeah, not great, but I almost feel forgiven of it considering the component parts in it.
But I'd fully expected. I thought this would be the worst match of the night by far, and it wasn't. And I don't know. That's damning with faint praise. No, exactly. And it was the way. It was that maneuver going out of the jaded, going between her legs, and just being able to get into the riptide. Just the way that was done, and like you say, that's the big takeaway. And the fact, again, only 10 minutes, but it had that kind of it had that sort of feel good finish to it. You had your big entrances. That's as much as you're going to get out of a Jade Cargill match. She's not getting any better than this. And do you know what? That was fine. I was all right with this because, like I said, you're watching this going, this could get very fucking ugly very quickly. And that never really happened, never deteriorated to something shit. And as a result, I was like, okay, that was fine. I honestly felt completely all right about this. Like those couple of times that Jade Cargill had matches on TV and AEW, you're like, okay, that seemed to work. I'm trying to think, is it the Statlander match where she lost? Yeah. And you're like, okay. But everything in WWE has been so bad. But
that with this many years on and this many years into a WWE run, and with all of the tools in the world that the World Class Performance Center has got and such, she hasn't really got much better. Like, it's damn with faint praise, isn't it, that we're saying it didn't go far wrong. It wasn't a disaster. You know, we're using all these times. None of them are saying, oh, this was this great women's match. And again, you know, both look like $1 million coming out, especially Jade. You know, again, finish was done well. It ticked the boxes it needed to tick. But I do think we should be further along with it. It does make me wonder. It's almost like, well, what's it for? It's a bit like the Jericho conversation. It's like, all right, we got through another big match at Mania, but like, I don't know if getting through it is really the words we should be using. What's it actually for? Is she going to actually throw money in some form? She's never actually going to get better, so you're always going to have to protect her to this degree. I'm almost asking, is it worth it? You know, at the end of the day, is it worth it? Just to, you know, shove it down Tony Khan's throat that they got it wrong. Maybe that's the lesson we need to learn here. But yeah, again, yeah, maybe I'm not giving enough credit. Like Chris Elliott says there again, we have praised the finishing sequences and all the reversals that got them to the the riptide. You know, was well done. So maybe there's some improvement there, but there's not much really, is there, in the grand scheme of things?
Oh God, no, not within the grand scheme of things. But then it's one of those things about the PC and how they're training people. Like, the thing that ultimately she's needed to have, and she's never had, regardless when she was in AEW and when she was in WWE, she needs loads of fucking matches. She's been working like loads of fucking matches. That's the only way that we might see some tangible improvement, and we're never getting that. That's never happening. She's not being sent on an excursion anytime soon. She's not going to be like, okay, go and train with Sendai girls for a bit. Like, you know, do that kind of stuff. Is she ever going to do that? No, that's never, ever going to happen. And this is, if you are going to use her, this is probably as good a use of her as you're going to get out of it. And if you set up, like, if basically her new version of the baddies with B-Fab and Michin kind of catches on in any way as this sort of like bitchy mean girl stable.
Which I could see. You know, and they were good. The placement of them was, you know, it was well executed. Yeah.
It is, and that was, but that's the things that you can see when it's being rehearsed within an inch of its life. But like, ultimately, it is a worthwhile discussion of like, is there really any point to this? I just think as anything else, she's there for. I imagine TKO look at her and go, well, this is kind of what we want. Like we want women's wrestlers who look like this. This is what we want. That's what Triple H wants. And she's a look at the end of the day. And they manage. And it's always like heart in your mouth. Are they going to get away with it in actual matches? And I kind of think they got away with it here. But long term, her heart's not really in it. It's just a case of trying to get whatever value out of her now. And she's never.
She doesn't have to be better. Like, you know, I think, you know, obviously it's a different world than the early 90s where a Sid or a Warlord could probably get away with it. I think you have to be a certain level. And she doesn't have to be like everyone else either. She just has to be good at being Jade Cargill. But I guess counter there from Andy in the chat there saying, you know, she doesn't have to be a great technician when you look like a Greek goddess. And good Lord, did the commentary love mentioning how great she looks. It's like every second line. But hey, she did look great. So that's a bigger positive point. And speaking of positive points, JP, we will obviously we've talked the main event, so there's only one more segment to talk from the show, but it's the biggest moment of the show. And I'm not talking about John Cena coming out and announcing our fake attendance of 106,000. Fuck off. I fucking hate it. Double counting people. But anyway, never mind the 8 or 9 or maybe even 10,000 they've tacked on there as well, as they want to do. We had them interrupted, mate, by The Miz and Kit Wilson. That meant only one thing was coming, John Paul. As yes, Danhausen and the little people, I'm going to use the terminology that Michael Cole refused to, came out with him. Which, I've got to be honest. If I'm not doing my Danhausen bit because Matthew's not around, this was a WrestleMania segment that I think with any other characters involved, I probably would hate. And it probably was, the most broad of the Danhausen experience we've had in WWE so far. But I'm going to take the wins while we're there, JP. It got a laugh out of me when the little person kicked. Was it Kit Wilson in the balls before Danhausen punched him in the balls? John Cena giving him the big endorsement, allowing him to do a really bad 5-knuckle shuffle, which, again, Danhausen, non-wrestler. The conversation continues on that one. But hey, Cena never hit it particularly well. But, obviously Cena conspicuously did not get physically involved at all. Let Danhausen do all the work. Celebrated with him. But I'll take the victories, JP, as hokey as maybe some of that comedy was. It landed in a world where Danhausen made his debut to absolute silence. The crowd reacted massively to him. And we now live in a world, JP, in 2026, where John Cena and Danhausen are sharing the ring on a WrestleMania. Did Matty mention this in his review? Now that I think about it, did he skip over it? I can't remember him mentioning it. Has he pulled one over on us all?
I can't remember that. That's a fair shout, actually.
What? I listened to that twice as well. I feel like I didn't hear it. What a little shit.
I assume the minute he saw the Miz and Kit Wilson, he went, "I'm off for a piss." That's it, because that is exactly what I would have done.
I'm pinning him down when he's back. Matty Evans' pre-show is going to be half an hour on this Danhausen segment. And Cena was loving him as well. And
was he?
I think it's a nice story. Genuinely, I think it's a nice story. The lad got himself over. The lad, was in AEW being not utilised. Whether you think that's a good or not, he probably shouldn't have been AEW in the first place. He never really fit long term. But, he's got to WWE of all places. Sells all that merch. Vince Russo, and he never lies, said the most merch he saw all weekend was Daniel Hausen. And there you go, JP. You got to be happy for allegedly good people. Who knows on that bit? But, still.
I don't have to be happy for him. I'll just say, well done. He's made the most out of the absolute. He's the most
WWE act ever, is he not?
He is. And him being there as their mascot now at the moment, fine, whatever. I can either I'll never like him. I'll never find him funny. It is one of these things. I'm trying to think of kind of sitcoms that massive amounts of people have might be something like My Family. And I'm just sat there going, I don't get it. Mrs. Brown's Boys. This is like Mrs. Brown's Boys to me. And then there's people who piss themselves laughing. And I'm just looking blankly at them going, I don't see whatever you're seeing. I'm not seeing it, and it's not what I'm hearing here at all.
None of the backstage segments on SmackDown made you laugh. They're genuinely funny. He is funny. His delivery's good. Cold Steve, all that.
He has got a decent delivery. It's just the whole shtick is never something that I'm kind of I'm never going to end up enjoying. But it works. So I'm in a minority for what their fans want out of him, and they wanted a moment like him, and it was set up to be the Miz and Kit Wilson. Did I want a sort of Shane McMahon Snoop Dogg moment? Absolutely. That would have added something to it for me, but that's me being an absolute prick about it. But at the same time, I'm watching this stuff and I'm thinking, God, I'd love Austin to come out and just start stunning everybody here.
That was what it was missing. I feel like there's a draft of this that involved him. As he was in Vegas, and as always, Steve has it's either a high price or just a high level of what he's willing to do. And this didn't, unfortunately, not a Danhausen fan like our John seemed to be.
No, he did. I didn't see. I was debating at the time when he did the laughing, and he was just like, "That was brilliant." I think he says, and I'm just like, "Do you really mean that, John? Or have the acting classes starting to work? Fair play. You were good in Head of State. I'll never give him the grief as an actor that other people have.
He's good as an actor. Right. He's just terrible as playing himself in wrestling. That's where he's the most wooden. Here."
Yeah, and I have to say, the way they used him generally for this was really completely nondescript and underdeveloped as well. He was just wheeled out bit of the beginning, gives them the crowd, and then that's it. And this is the only kind of moment out of any of it where you have this on here. It is what it is. If you're doing like kind of time killing segments, we only saw like this is the only one, wasn't it, over the 2 days that we had.
I wouldn't call it time killing. They'd have filled it with ads if they had their time to kill.
Oh yeah,
they made time for it. If anything,
it is what it is. I'm never going to like him, mate. I can see why you think, okay, this has kind of worked, but I go back to us reviewing Ring of Honor pay-per-views and then being on the pre-show and going, why is this bloke popular? I don't get it. I don't see it. And I almost feel exactly the same way, but also recognizing that if there's an audience this is going to work for, it's this audience.
It'll be Warhorse next.
Yeah.
Going back to those days, Jesus Christ.
Maybe you should do something with George Kittle and stop him from fucking and necking half pints, I might say. Not like full pints. Like I have to say, we didn't speak about that at all over the 2 days. We just go across and nick someone's drink. And they'd be like, the price is they're fucking paying. I'd have gone like, piss off. That's mine. I'm having this. You're not fucking downing it on telly just to pour most of half a pint into your fucking beard as well. Yeah. Very weird stuff, but hey ho, it worked.
Well, coming out of that, obviously, was the main event, which we've already talked. So, yeah, there we go. That was WrestleMania. I mean, there was some news coming out of it. We can talk before we get to some overall thoughts. Obviously, Raw had the Jacob and Roman Reigns section there as well. Obviously, Joe Hendry apparently are being called up, as well as Sol Ruka and Ethan Page. Be interesting to see how that goes. But obviously, the Punk and Cody segment obviously seem to be teasing a match with them at some point. SummerSlam. Probably not Saudi Mania, I wouldn't think. But yeah, maybe at a SummerSlam match for them as well. And yeah, obviously Roman Reigns coming out as well and saying that and he said that post the pay-per-view, didn't he? He's done with his part-time schedule. We're going to be seeing him all summer. Any thoughts on what's next for those lads? I do like that though. I'm not going to be part-time anymore. You're going to see me all summer, and then I'm going to be part-time. So presumably, whenever he loses the belt, he's gonna fuck up off again. But there we go. Don't know what else was notable from Raw. I guess Punk's reaction in reaction to felt like a little bit in reaction to that fight with the not fight with the family. He knocked the fucking phone out of a gobshite's hand. The more you see that, obviously the clip that TMZ used very clearly didn't show the previous bit of it where the bloke was harassing, was it AJ and Bailey? There's been on the ground reports of him harassing other people as well, and just generally there not being much security as far as TKO's cost cutting goes. Apparently extends to even the gigantic casino hotels in Las Vegas, where there was not much barrier between fans and wrestlers, and such things are going to happen. But I don't know. I also feel as well, I think more fans like that deserve a slap, while I equally hold the opinion that it's fucking one weekend a year, or 4 weekends a month if you want to be charitable. Like, they're not in work much, are they? They can deal with it while it happens. But maybe there's blame on both sides.
And you're doing it to Phil as well. Like the one bloke who is going to fucking bite back in that as well. He's very weird.
I'd like him to do it more. I really would. Yeah, be a banner week. Bring back Miziera Kante. Have an actually good match at WrestleMania, and also beat up some fans. The Phil trifecta. They'll fight backstage with another wrestler, and we'd be at the races, mate.
Oh, thank God when he went to All in London that he didn't end up doing that with somebody on the tube. Like, you can get some right fucking nasty people about the place. That would have been like a situation that would have fucking escalated if that was there. In terms of the bigger thoughts of Raw, I watched all of Raw today, and I hadn't expected to watch all of Raw, but I did. And I actually thought it was okay for what it was. Like, I have no expectations of the Raw after WrestleMania and stuff like that. That's just sort of been gone for such a long time. It seems like we're going to be getting the next load of call-ups from NXT. Ethan Page is kind of tailor-made for mid-card wrestler on Raw. That's absolutely fine. Sol Ruka was always going to get a call-up in there as well. Joe Hendry's very quick, the way they've done that. And what they're doing, a concert next week or something along those lines? Oh, fucking hell.
Jump the shaft next week. Unlike Dan Housen, evergreen. But anyway.
He'll be doing stuff with it, and it'll be like Joe Housen and stuff like that, and they'll end up tagging. You watch. It'll be that kind of jazz on it. But I have to say, in terms of, I was hoping they were setting up Cody and Punk for SummerSlam, because it's a big fucking stadium. You need to sell some tickets, and if you're not doing it at Mania, do it there. if you want to do a rematch, you can do that at Mania. That's fine. You can have your cake and eat it on that front. The fact that Femi coming out and the way that promo was delivered and stuff, that was spot on. And Jacob Fatu, kind of, I know it's going back to the bloodline. We're back in that sort of world again. But you know what? It's comfort food for Roman Reigns. Wouldn't be surprised, like you say, if Jacob Fatu just ends up winning the title. Like, I wouldn't be that amazed at all for that being the case. And then Roman might do his buggering off bit. But I think this is like, I enjoyed the kind of level of faith they showed in some new people in and around the top of the card, and Jacob Fatu just sort of like looking the part. It's like and I was there watching it going like, okay, so I'm assuming that he says he's his little cousin, but I'm always thinking, like, who's Jacob Fatu's dad? I can't remember. Is it like Tonga Kid? Am I wrong on
Tonga
that?
Kid,
Is
yeah.
it is Tonga Kid. So it's like, oh, okay. So it feels like he's a bit of a black sheep of the family and stuff like that. Look, it's manner to Matty, like he gets more bloodline, but we're not getting Solo Sikoa. We're getting Jacob Fatu. I can live with
Might
that.
be a long summer.
Yeah, could be a fucking long summer for that. But we're going to be getting a bit of this stuff in there in between, and I'm absolutely fine with that. So yeah, it kind of like delivered. It felt like, in terms of like they managed, considering how bad the Saturday was, it felt by the end of Raw that they kind of rescued things somewhat, which I don't like saying. I want to give them shit, if I'm brutally honest. But it felt like between how the main event went, how the Femi push went, and the good sort of fan service they delivered on the Sunday, and the fact you've got new and fresh in terms of different directions, certainly on Raw, I thought they did a pretty good job.
I probably wouldn't go that far, because as much as I enjoyed a lot of Night 2, all the same problems were still there, as far as like the over advertising and the weird disconnect. And obviously, was it Ari Emanuel? It was one of them who did an interview at the weekend saying, "Oh no, we're fully in control of creative." Like Steph said earlier, there's like that weird, like it almost feels like AI booked Night 1 and book Night 2 is Triple H, but it feels a little bit charitable to Triple H to kind of say that. There's still that battle going on, and it still feels like they're at war with, their own fan base in a lot of ways. There's some positive directions coming out of Raw, but broadly speaking, I still think they're, in a really negative space, and I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. And we've got a Saudi WrestleMania coming up next year, never mind, The other thing is that whatever they're going to be doing over the next year or so to maximize those profits. Mark Shapiro was, thank you, Simon, in the chat there as well. But tells you, they're not stopping, they're not changing their minds, even if maybe some of the bad creative seems like it's dead. Maybe Pat McAfee is actually going to be off TV now, and maybe Jelly Roll is reconsidering things as well. But yeah, very, very much more mixed there for me. Like Night 1 was all-time bad. Night 2 had plenty of redeeming qualities about it, but I think, if it's a thumbs down show and a thumbs up show, you end up with a thumbs in the middle overall, and still a leaning thumbs down on the current WWE, way it's being run by in the TKO era. But moving on very quickly, JP, from the while we're still talking there, Mania weekend, did you? Is it a lock? Is worst show of the weekend WrestleMania Night 1? Does WrestleMania Night 2 get your best show? What are your shouts for it? What did you see overall? We talked a little bit at the top. What was the JP shows you saw this weekend?
So the main shows that I saw, JCW Stranglemania for my fucking sins, and I have to say, agree. I was laughing away. I was hanging out some washing when I was listening to you and Gareth, and I just started creasing up. I was getting weird looks from inside the house. What are you laughing at? Oh, don't worry about it. You won't get the joke for it. But it was just so, it almost had to be experienced for it. Match of, I suppose, outside of the WrestleMania main event, it's like you say, and I think this is a point you brought up with Andy and Gareth, and I have to agree with it. Like, good for WrestleMania weekend is basically 3 stars and above, because everyone is kind of preserving himself. So it's just like it's load of content, and this will probably be the last Triller. Well, it will be. Let's face it. It's the last Triller WrestleMania. So God knows
they're at the door already. They're already gone.
Yeah. What is the position going to be after this? Like, God knows what YouTube. I'd imagine. And that's the thing. There was loads of interest. There was New Texas Pro and St. Louis Anarchy. When I was looking for these shows, it's like, oh, they're going to be on YouTube next week. And I'm like, it'd be out of my mind by that point because I didn't.
Some of those are replays on IWTV, yeah.
Yeah.
And some of them are still on YouTube. I think is it New Texas Pro or St. Louis Anarchy? I always get them the wrong way around. I think it's St. Louis Anarchy, I think is the no, it's New Texas Pro that's up on YouTube. Yeah, you can watch it there. But I mean, I'd go like for me, like I'd say best show of the weekend.
Blue Panther. But
oh yeah, that's the match of the weekend, and it goes in with the show of the weekend as well. Like I think, if anyone hasn't seen that, two granddads or one granddad and one older uncle, is probably a fairer way of putting it. Going back and forth and just creating magic as far as like the way they were kind of catching each other and the way that like you had your heart in your mouth because Blue Panther's on fucking Ultimo Guerrero's shoulders in the corner, and like where are they possibly going to go from this? And of course they're going to go to Arana because they've done it 400,000 times. But the old masters are still the masters, and it was by far and away the best match of the weekend. To your point there, I think for me, of the stuff I saw, like Red and Bandido was pretty good, but wouldn't stand out on a collision really as much as I did enjoy it in the moment. And outside of that, Sandman wrestling himself, I think that was the other lone match highlight of the weekend. The Invisible Man. I wasn't into Joey Janela and Brody Lee. I know Gareth was, so it was good to hear that Gareth enjoyed it, but I wasn't for me. It was too long and laboured for me, but I really enjoyed Sandman working himself. So that ends up being like the second or third, probably the second best match of the weekend with Bandido and Red right behind it.
Yeah, I'd probably go. I mean, I had a great fucking laugh watching Jim Fullington wrestle himself, which I didn't think would ever be the case, but it worked. And then getting in, like Invisible Stan coming back and low blowing, the pair of them low blowing Sandman and Jim Fullington there as well. Haven't seen Kendra Lust for a long time. I was like, oh, bloody hellfire. That's a blast from the past, teenage years. But like, it's almost like it's kind of, in some ways, I'm not expecting to see these absolute classics. We're just not going to get them. And I just don't think there's the levels of talent outside of individual wrestlers who are going to look to make a name for themselves. So this kind of stuff is completely in the wheelhouse of what I want to be seeing. And
just not that much of it is the issue in it. If it was the only one, and there wasn't like 20 other mean matches going on at the weekend. Yeah, we had a great time reviewing that one on the Patreon show. That was fun. Like I say, definitely Blue Panther and Ultimo Guerrero was the other ones. That's probably my three. As far as like wrestler of the weekend goes, it probably ends up being for that appearance. Blue Panther. I don't know. Sandman's one man appearance. I think there wasn't really anybody who had like a Speedball Mike Bailey weekend or even like the Bandido weekend I'll always mention, or there was a Mania weekend where LAX were kind of the MVPs. I enjoyed One Called Manders everywhere I saw him and Timo the Great, I think on that New Texas Pro show. Like he was good. He's got one of them. He's got a high floor is probably the way to put it, and like you said, there's always not necessarily him, but there's always going to be a low ceiling on the WrestleMania weekend shows. So I think he stood out the couple of times I saw him across the weekend. The Thomas Shire match they had as well, I did enjoy too. I was going to make it a weekend of Gangrel, JP, but after the first day where it felt like he wrestled on about 7 different shows, didn't see him again all weekend, which was a shame. I want to see Vinny Masario and Mad Dog Connolly from St. Louis Anarchy. Gareth was putting that over as one of the few shows I didn't see. Pretty much sure everything this weekend as it happened. And yeah, from the WrestleCon Super Show, there wasn't really a match of the weekend contender from that one for me. Mark Davis and Masato Tanaka was 2.75, 3 stars. Yeah. There was a better version of that, which somewhere I enjoyed seeing Subculture again, so there was that. But yeah, it is hard to pick all the stuff really that stands out, really.
The wrestlers
that have stood out this weekend.
Yeah, that's the bits that I'm finding difficult. So I watched the MLP show. I don't know if you saw Maple Leaf Pro because they were also at the Palms. I know that Triller were doing some sort of deal. So
all the Palm shows looked amazing. They really did.
They did. And the problem is the Horseshoe, as convenient as it was for Matty, just a terrible, terrible venue. When you're just watching it straight away and you're like, oh God, this just feels really fucking nondescript. And there's nothing you can do to make it look great. And it was even so dark at the point that Stranglemania was on, and I was trying to look out for Matty the entire time. And unfortunately, I'm seeing a load of fellas with caps and beards all over the place. It's like playing Where's Wally. Like, it's insane. It's like, where's Matty? It's like, can't find him at all for Love and the Money. But on the MLP show, I do want to give a shout out because I did see or was it Steve Borden? It's the first time I've seen him wrestle. He was in there. What was his name? I want to say it was like Darius Gray, and it was basic stuff, but it was intriguing because he looks the fucking part. He's got a hell of a body on him and a hell of a look, and obviously he's going to have doors open for him as well. But this is a bloke who needs to be all over indies if he's going to do something with this and not being fast tracked. Have him on some sort of deal with AEW and Ring of Honor, like at some point, but don't have him go anywhere near those places for like a good 18 months because he needs a lot of seasoning to him. But there's a look and there's natural storylines that come out with him as well.
I was going to point out, you reminded me to point out, I think I called him Casey also, or I think it's KJ also, the former Fuego del Sol.
Yeah.
He's got something. He has, he's one of those, he's jaw-jacking with the fans. He's got, you won't believe it's the same human. You'll look at him and go, why was he ever under a mask as Fuego del Sol? Good looking lad. Great look for a wrestler as well. He's a little bit more built than he was. And, he's that mouthy heel, good character and crowd work. There's no particular match that stood out. Saw him in a scramble and another time across the weekend, and it was there's something there. There really is. It was the grudge tag match as well, and that was really good.
That was all right.
Really good character work from him in that as well. Yeah, absolutely. On him
and Sam Stackhouse against Jungle Express.
Stackhouse. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, and obviously with the bus and all that as well. But Sam Stackhouse was it's fun as well as his big heavy on the side. But he's going to either be back in AEW, or I think I said it on one of the shows. He should wait until they really want him rather than go and do an ROH taping or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to be a player, if not in NXT or something. So yeah, definitely believe the hype there with him. But I was just going through some of the comments we had earlier, obviously on highlights and lowlights. We can get into the lowlights. Andy Ryan has the whole JCW card as his lowlight worst show of the weekend. Chris Elliott going with match of the weekend, Punk Roman. Obviously, Placco and the Lucha lads, Sandman or Punk, the other Joe. I think that's probably fair if we're counting WrestleMania. But yeah, Chris Elliott saying if JCW wasn't a thing, he'd gone Mania. Night one for worst show.
Do you know what I would say?
People can't decide which is worse.
Yeah,
I would say
JCW was bad. That's not a surprise. And I'm not saying that there's excuses. They got some shit workers on there, just weird stuff. But it's compared to WrestleMania Night 1, which doesn't have those excuses. I was so much more angry about that. JCW being shit. A Vince Russo booked promotion, water is wet, sky is blue. I expect it to be shit. So I'd say WrestleMania Night 1 was the worst show of the weekend.
I think I could JCW. I think it was that bad. It was irredeemably bad for me.
Laughed, even at some bits though. I know you didn't. Honestly. You didn't find the ironic thing on it as well. Ian, fucking hell.
I mean, I can laugh about it now, but it was painful in the moment. I felt the same about what I did actually catch up with the clusterfuck just for my sins. I like to be a completist. I say that I'm a completist. I didn't watch Effie's brunch because fuck that. I already sat through, if we're talking worst of the weekend, Ali catching Effie going 40 minutes or whatever it was, doing ideas well above the station that they can't execute. To almost silence was fucking awful. And the stip was that Ali Catch had to leave GCW after it, and nobody seemed to care that much. It was really rotten. That'd probably be worst match of the weekend, if not the clusterfuck. But we had, as Andy said in the chat there, the 20 minutes of the clusterfuck that, not even 20 minutes. There was 5 minutes of the clusterfuck I enjoyed, which was Brian Alvarez and Sean Ross Sapp. But
how was that?
Brian Alvarez, friend of the show. He just had the chop fest. Brian Alvarez didn't sell, and then he got thrown out, and he went off to back to his hotel room to record Observer Radio for the morning after. That was the lowest highlight.
By the looks of things.
Painful 3 hours that you will never get back. With very light on the highlights there. Andy going with Sleepy Head as his highlight. Yeah, that couldn't even save it for me as well. But yeah, I would have. I mean, overall, I think Spring Break was rough this year. Outside of the Sandman match for me. So yeah, I'd have that low down, but I think it's JCW for me as worst show and worst performer across the weekend. Trying to think who's the better, who's particularly probably Effie, to be honest. And I only sat through him once.
I didn't even sit through him, so I can't blame him. Even I'm trying to think. Who would it be?
Might be someone on Bloodsport, maybe. It had the worst finish of the weekend, Bloodsport. Count out on Bloodsport, JP, not hashtag not my Bloodsport.
Fucking, we are a world away from the Super Beast glory days, aren't we, for that? I did watch Pete Dunne, Masashi Takeda, which is, I just couldn't get beyond the Spurs shirt. That was it.
Fucking loser, man.
Like, absolute loser. Yeah. And trust me, our season
is going attack this week, fair play.
But Jesus Christ, it's like he's from Birmingham. I don't understand. Unless there's a really good connection to North London, I'm struggling with this. Certainly not something you'd be saying.
Now of all times to wear it.
Yeah. No, he's never done he never mentioned anything about Spurs at any stage in there. As well, the Rob Van Dam's a good shout.
I'm gonna say maybe that's a highlight from JCW. Maybe there was one. And Twat and Kenta with again Errant Fist.
Yeah, if somebody just said to him, "Is like, do you know what, mate? Like honestly, when you were beating shit out of lads before, like, come on, there's a bit of poetic justice in there as well. Congo Kong being shit. I expect him to be shit. Worst performer?
It's got to be someone off the JCW show, surely.
He really does. And there's a part of me wants to say Too Tough Tony.
Cocaine? He plays his gimmick all right, though. Yeah, probably Too Tough Tony, but that's the point, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. That's another. I mean, you'd say fucking Ian in there. Vito as heel manager and JCW lunacy isn't the worst in there. It's an odd thing in there. Was it Matty said he might be promo of the year? Like about Vito. How the fuck
Vito and his work shirt and pants he got from Asda George? Nah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm probably just going to go Ian in there because I mean, from what Matty had said as well, he looked like he was fucked from before he'd even gone on. He went near, and that was like as soon as Matty arrived in the hotel. So it's like, okay, you're fearing the worst, but maybe JCW's approach. Maybe the worst performer is Vince Russo, thinking, okay, best foot forwards. I'll put this show together, and it's absolute shit.
GCW in general could get that, but there we go. Yeah, slim on highlights this weekend. A couple of mentions in the chat, obviously. Despi's show, the New Japan GCW show with Zack versus Funenori Abe in the opener, which I know a lot loved, and the death match that probably is going to split opinion in the three-way in the main event. Probably the two things worth watching from that as well. But yeah. Very short on highlights this year, but I feel like a more detailed take on it. Like I say, we did the daily podcast. You can hear our reactions to the shows as they went. So to be fair, Andy had a couple of highlights on his show, and Gareth did as well. You do manage to find a couple amongst it, but it's getting harder every year. Is definitely the case.
It does make me think if we're getting to this point where, for whatever reason, the Saudi Mania happens next year, and the idea that AEW might run a stadium show in the US, like, is this going to be what tags alongside it? I'd love there to be some degree of quality control and stuff like that, because it need too many shows, too much overexposure. And I think it just needs to be almost like a degree of quality control needs to come into it, but that's never going to happen. But there's the amount of companies running there, losing their ass, and you just think, lads, do you need to do this? Is this what tangible gain?
St. Louis Anarchy and New Texas Pro in front of 20 people. I don't know what to gain from that, really. Yeah.
Six Music Gareth is all over that because he loves the Bazaar Bar. But yeah,
maybe visit one day. They got something out of it.
Yeah, exactly. He'll get something out of it. He'd go and see some really, really good bands there or something like that at some point.
And in fairness, I got something out of it too. Like I said at the top, I very much enjoyed it. Like I said, my mum was proud to see she shouldn't be proud to see the clips of me there doing the podcast each day. But I enjoyed that as well. I enjoyed doing it with everybody. I enjoyed the community, obviously, with everyone in the comments each of the nights. And on top of that, obviously, the Discord going off across the weekend, including the grand old hate watch that took place for Saturday WrestleMania. I did. I enjoyed it as a week. It was great to, even with the odd time difference, this year it was fun to follow along, even if there wasn't much to love, but there was lots to hate, and that was fun. So I very much still enjoyed myself this year, JP, despite maybe some of the in-ring content.
You asked who the best performer this weekend was. It was you, mate. all of those podcasts, all of those shows you put yourself through to watch on here for sometimes at best limited gains. Like, honestly, you need to give yourself a big Barry Horowitz pat on the back and
going to
and
10
reward yourself.
Exactly. I refuse to not do GRAPPLMania 10. We're going to get there. Even if it's fucking Saudi WrestleMania and like some bumfuck indie in St. Louis or something like that. We're doing it. We're covering it. I'm going to find a way, but nice one. I appreciate it. But no, thank you to Andy, obviously, for jumping on the Friday. He was great. Gareth was great on the Thursday, as well as the Dynasty review. It's late. It's been a long weekend. And also, obviously, as well, we're doing the live with it. Well, Matty Midweek was fun as well. Views I look forward to hearing maybe in podcast form with the two of us at some point, as well as the amazing audio that he put out over the last couple of days as well. But like I say, you can go back and listen to all that. You can listen to Matty's stuff, which will be evergreen. I'd highly recommend that on the Patreon. But yeah, outside of that, do we have any other plugs to say, JP? Obviously, Grapple Lads on the road is on the feed. Yes. Ask Grapple from a couple of weeks ago was still very much worth a listen. We got Carl's King of the Mountain show coming up at the end of the month. And outside of that, Benno and Ham came out as well in the midst of Mania week. We put our Ground Zero review up for season 2, and we had a great time on that. So if you all WrestleMania out, especially after this Mammoth review, definitely recommend check that out. Go back to 1997 when everything was good in the world.
Yeah, when pay-per-views were proper pay-per-views, God bless them. Yeah, brilliant stuff. Brilliant new logo as well for season 2 of Benno and Hamlet in your house. So, yeah, brilliant stuff for that. Like I say, you mentioned about the Carl Gatt King of the Mountain show as well, which I think we still don't know exactly what it's going to be. I'm scared, like having seen what the possible suggestions are. So that's like, okay, that's going to be potentially very interesting. So we'll see how we go with that. But there's so much content on there. And where do you go for this content? Well, patreon.com/grapple or youtube.com/@grapple. So go to both those places where you buy and sell podcasts.
There you go. Like I say, you hit a subscribe, costs you nothing, but membership only costs you 99p on the YouTube as well.
Exactly.
So what are you waiting for? But there you go. That's all out there. But as always, thank you to our live patrons who've joined with us live tonight for the show and joined with us through the week, as I mentioned. But also thank you to our YouTube members. And as always, thank you especially to our kings and queens of the mountain over on the Patreon. Karen Laughlin, Eddie Sauerburns, Chris Platt, Carl Gack, whose choices coming up. Sophie Hitchcock, Sam Mulvaney, and Marty Ellis. We'll catch you all again for another GRAPPLMania. Let's maybe not do it again next year, but the year after, we'll all be there. Let's do it. Good night.
Bye. Needs to bloody improve, though.
There you go. The gauntlet's laid out for you, GCW. Good night. Like, hype, and subscribe. Yeah, I agree with Chris. See ya.